Hello and welcome to CGTN special coverage of China's latest manned space launch. I'm Zhiyuan coming to you live from Beijing. In about 3 hours, the Shenzhou-23 crewed spaceship will lift off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China with taikonauts Zhu Yangzhu, Zhang, and Lai Ka-ying on board. Zhu Yangzhu is the mission commander, and Lai Ka-ying is the first taikonaut from the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. This is the 7th crewed mission in the application and development stage of China's Tiangong space station. It is also the 40th flight mission of the country's manned space program. And joining us in the studio is our special guest, Professor Yang Guang, Chair of the Space Transportation Committee of the International Astronautical Federation. Welcome to the program, Professor. But first, let's get to our correspondent on the grounds. My colleague Wang Hongjia is standing by for us at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, where there will be a brief ceremony for the 3 taikonauts. Good to see you there, Hongjia. Another big day for China's space odyssey. Tell us what's the mood there.
Hello, Zhiyuan. It's quite an exciting moment here at Yuan Square. You can see behind me, people are waving the flags and even the flowers, and all people are cheering. So the vibe here is absolutely electric. To better understand the Shenzhou-23 crew, I will give you a very simple idea that each of them will hit a first. Commander Zhu Yangzhu will become the first flight engineer to serve as a commander. Pilot Zhang Zhiyuan will enter the space for the first time, and Lai Ka-ying will become the first female payload specialist. Well, right now you can see behind me, there's a very special delegation I have just discovered. They are from Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, and they have traveled all the way from south of China to northwest of China here in Jiuquan. It's quite a long distance. Among them, there are reporters and students. And the same reason they come in here is to witness this historic moment, Hong Kong's first astronaut entering the space. Earlier, I have talked to the project lead of Hong Kong's first payload, Professor Su Hui, and she said she's very excited and feels super proud. And she also shared with us a wish that she hoped Lai Ka-ying could operate this equipment and take a picture of Hong Kong via this special camera. So one highlight of this mission this time is one astronaut will stay in orbit for over 1 year. While that is so challenging, requires extra stamina and resilience. Soon, the astronaut will arrive and attend the ceremony, and afterwards, they will head to the launch tower. The Long March 2F carrier rocket is already waiting for them. It's time to embark on the journey to the Tiangong space station. At this time, I really invite you to send the best messages to our brave astronauts. Good luck.
All right, Hongjia, thank you very much. Wang Hongjia live for us at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. The vibe is electric. Great to see that. One of the 3 Shenzhou-23 crew member is Lai Ka-ying, the first taikonaut from Hong Kong and China's 4th female taikonaut. Take a listen.
太空站距离我们很远，但是这个航天的梦想对我们
The space station is far away, but the dream of space exploration is not far. You must not limit yourself. The aerospace industry is not a single field. In fact, it is a grand undertaking composed of many different subjects. No matter what aspect your major is, you can also devote yourself to the aerospace industry and contribute to the country.
Lai Ka-ying signed up for China's 4th batch of reserve taikonauts and went to Beijing in 2023. And after undergoing several rounds of selection and multifaceted evaluations, she officially joined the taikonaut group in June 2024. Applicants for China's taikonaut program must undergo extreme tests, including high-intensity training tasks such as weightlessness, overweight endurance, and emergency response. The Shenzhou-23 crew are confident in their abilities to complete the mission.
我觉得飞行工程师还有一个他自带的优势。
I think aerospace engineers have an inherent advantage. He or she may have a relatively richer work experience and academic background. When an unknown problem or an emergency situation arises, he or she may be able to better analyze and solve the problem by leveraging his or her own experience and knowledge, compared with others who have equal operational capabilities. The aerospace engineer is able to make his or her own judgments and act proactively, and fully serve the role of an astronaut in space.
What I look forward to the most is the diverse and fresh elements of our crew in this mission, such as the engineer commander and a Hong Kong payload specialist. After our long period of training, we will demonstrate these elements by carrying out a successful mission.
And before the crew was officially introduced to the public on Saturday, one small detail had already fueled widespread speculation. The mission badge featuring the Mahinia flower, a symbol of Hong Kong. Wang Hongjian again tells us why.
航天员黎佳莹
Meet Lai Ka-ying, the first astronaut from the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
我一定会全力以赴
I will give my all to complete every task. I will shoulder the mission of an astronaut, contributing my strength to the development of our motherland and our nation. I will not fall short of Hong Kong residents' expectations, and I shall live up to the great trust placed in me by the motherland.
市民的期望
Li comes from the 4th batch of astronauts and will act as a payload specialist in the Shenzhou-23 mission. Before being selected, she worked in the Hong Kong police force. Well, this time in space, she is not the only one from Hong Kong SAR. Earlier carried by the Tianzhou-10 spaceship, the multispectral imaging carbon observatory has already arrived at the Tiangong space station.
I hope our homegrown Hong Kong taikonaut can operate this locally led scientific payload and leverage collected data to support China's dual carbon goals and tackle climate change. We also expect her to capture precise imagery of the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area via our special camera.
Hong Kong SAR Chief Executive Zhang also congratulated Lai Ka-ying on becoming a member of the country's 4th batch of astronauts.
I sincerely thank the country for its trust in Hong Kong SAR and for its recognition and support of the city's innovation and technology community. I wish the Shenzhou-23 mission every success as it continues to write a new chapter in China's space achievements.
Li's journey into space is also encouraging more international researchers to base their space-related research efforts in Hong Kong.
China's now doing, and I'm saying fantastic. I mean, I'm too old myself, you know, or else I'd be signing up to try to get on board. But anyway, it's fantastic, and I think that's correct. It's the right decision, the right direction of travel. Having a mixed, diversity, I fundamentally believe that Hong Kong can act as a global space sustainability hub for China, but based in Hong Kong under one country, two systems, gives it some very strong and unique advantages.
As Lai Ka-ying prepares to embark on her journey, it marks a moment when the pole of the Orient is reaching for the stars. Wang Hongjian, CGTN at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
For the latest, our correspondent Sun Ye is live for us at just over 1 kilometer away from the launch pad. Great to see you there, Sun Ye. Now we're just a couple hours away from blast off. Tell us, what are the final preparations going there?
Hey there, Zhiyuan. Right, we are 1.5 kilometers away from the launch tower. This is actually where the spectators will be crowding to see that launch. Right now, the crowd is still filling up. As you know, they are also waiting for that seeing off ceremony. Now, you will see there, that's the launch tower and the Shenzhou-23 spaceship and rocket. It's still wrapped inside those rotation platforms. Those rotation platforms will open up slowly, one by one, starting an hour from now. But work here at the launch center has started much earlier. Most of the personnel have arrived at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's about 5 hours ago. And about 3 hours ago, some of the more time-sensitive luggage, if you will, were loaded into the spaceship. That's including some biological space experiment materials. And throughout all all these time, of course, including now, the launch center system is making checkups and monitoring on temperature, on pressure, on the fuel, on how erect the rocket is standing. And that process will go on throughout this evening until the very last moments until launch. And I am reporting here now, you will also be hearing some of the call and response from that launch center system, and they are going to report their current status. And according to what we have just heard, everything is going according to plan. Jiuyuan.
Fantastic to hear that. Thank you very much, Zhang, live for us there from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. And let me now bring in our guest, Professor Yang Guang. Professor, we're now standing by for a astronaut send-off ceremony, and that's expected to take place in just a few more minutes. What are your expectations for this crew, Shenzhou-23 crew?
Well, you know that yesterday I'm here joining the live coverage of the press conference of the Shenzhou-23 mission. It's amazing, you know, that just before the formal announcement, I thought our Hong Kong astronaut will conduct a short-term visit to Tiangong Space Station. But you know that yesterday I just know that she will stay there for half a year. So this means that our Hong Kong astronaut, Ms. Jiaying, is already as good as all her colleagues in the team of our astronauts. So this is a really great mission. You know that it will not only be a milestone for the China manned space program, but I think it is also a great milestone for the whole China aerospace. Hong Kong, you know that after it returned to China in 1997, almost 29 years before, you know that at that moment, we hope that Hong Kong can play more important role, not only in commerce, in other importing and exporting, but also in scientific research and high technology. There are many famous universities in Hong Kong, and also Ms. Li Jiaying has a PhD degree from the Hong Kong University. And you know that in the lunar exploration program, we do have our colleagues and experts from Hong Kong who provide very important instruments and technology for our critical missions. And today, they also be more important in our manned space program. So this is really great. And you know that Ms. Li Jiaying, as introduced by many media yesterday, she's the mother of 3 kids, and today she with only training less than 2 years, she now can speak very fluent Mandarin, and I think she can do her job in orbit very quickly during the next half of year.
So she is the first taikonaut coming from Hong Kong SAR. And let's also talk about the commander, right? He is the first time a flight engineer has been named as a commander. How significant is that?
This also made history. Actually speaking, during the Shenzhou-16 mission, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, or Dr. Zhu Yangzhu, he is the first flight engineer of the China Aerospace. At that mission also, he is the first one in our history to conduct a flight mission. Moreover, the important thing is that this time he acted as the commander. Usually, you know that although the flight engineer and pilots have different roles, but for commander, he must have the ability to act as a pilot. You see that to ensure the safety of each mission, you know that we must have at least 2 astronauts who can piloting the ship. This is to ensure we have sufficient redundancy. If anything wrong happens to one person, the other one can take the role. And especially, you know that this is important in abnormal cases, he can operate and do the right response to the certain signal and to ensure the safe of the whole crew.
Stay with me, Professor. Let's also take a look at this. 9 space science experiments totaling more than 50 kilograms are heading to the China Space Station on this mission. And the experiment's resources include crop seeds, biocatalytic, and solar energy materials, and microbial samples as well. And among the highlights is China's first dynamic testing of perovskite solar cells on the Tiangong Space Station. Researchers say the results could help advance lightweight, high-efficiency, low-cost, flexible photovoltaic technologies for satellites, deep space exploration, and future lunar samples. They also hope to grow rice through 2 consecutive generations in orbit.
Through this experiment, we hope to understand what effects space microgravity will have on the rice production process, which is required for the crew in long-term deep space exploratory class manned missions, and whether the space environment will affect rice genetic stability and what the underlying mechanisms might be.
So we're going to see lots of experiments for the first time. This mission, of course, boasts a number of firsts. Another one is we're going to see a taikonaut staying there for a year.
Exactly.
Talk to us the significance of this experiment.
Well, from the view of scientific research, you know that this is extremely important. Mr. Zhou Jianping, the chief designer of our China Manned Space Program, has mentioned that the moon will not be the final terminal for the China aerospace. And in the future, maybe 1 or 2 decades, we will go further into the deep space, including a mission to Mars. You know that the zodiac period of a Mars mission is more than 1.5 years. So it is important to study the influence of the microgravity and the space environment to human body with a period more than 1 year. So this time, with this experiment to be conducted during the Shenzhou-23 and the Shenzhou-24 crew to stay in orbit for a year mission will be extremely meaningful for us to conduct the space medicine and space biology study. And also, you can also recognize this as the preparation for the future manned Mars missions. Sooner or later, the Chinese people walk on the Martian surface. Another thing is because you know that we will have short visitors, as I mentioned, we will have the short-term visitors. They will stay in our space station for about 5 days. So we can have two choices. We can have a manned spaceship and a launch vehicle dedicated to, we already seen the signals of the video.
Yeah,
from
we're
front.
getting a live look at the Wentian Hall. We're now standing by for the takeoff ceremony for the taikonauts. This is the place where the astronauts work and live at the launch center in the days leading up to liftoff. You can see the vibe is electric. There you see our taikonauts emerging from the building there. You're looking at the commander in the center, Zhu Yangzhu, and with him, our pilot Zhang and payload specialist Jiaying from Hong Kong. They will push those numbers even higher. Another mission to space, to our Tiangong space station. And one of them will do something no Chinese taikonaut has done before, which is stay in orbit for a full year. Let's listen in.
指挥长同志，我们奉命执行
With carrying out the Shenzhou-23 manned mission, we are ready, awaiting your command. Taikonaut Zhu Yangzhu, Taikonaut Zhang Zhiyuan, Taikonaut Lai Ka-ying. Proceed. Yes.
Now, after declaring their mission and receiving the go-ahead from the chief commander there, the 3 taikonauts are waving to the crowds, pausing for the cameras for a bit before they depart. And you can see hundreds of people in the crowd there. There are journalists there documenting this historic moment. There are also staff members who work at the base. Some of them took part in this particular mission. And there are family members as well, kids who go to school at the base. They're holding flowers, national flags, a very exciting moment for them as well. And for many of these families, this is as personal as it gets. There you have it, the Shenzhou-23 crew. A fascinating mix, a veteran commander leading 2-time flyers, first-time flyers, a crew that bridges generations, and now, for the first time, bridging regions as well. We've got Mission Commander Zhu Yangzhu. He is no stranger to space. He flew on Shenzhou-16 back in 2023. But this time, he is stepping into the commander's seat, and that means shouldering a whole new level of responsibility. He was born in 1986. He's from Jiangsu province, and what's so remarkable is that he is the first ever flight engineer to serve as mission commander in China's program. A big thumbs up to the fellow teams and well-wishers who are sending them off. And this is also a sign of how the space station era values engineering mastery alongside piloting skills. And spacecraft pilot Zhang is also making his space flight debut. He's born in 1988. He's from Hunan province, a former fighter jet pilot. He was selected as part of the third batch of Taikonaut in 2020. Trained from day one for the Tiangong era, not adapted from earlier mission profiles. And now the crew are getting onto the minivan, who will be taking them to the launch pad. And of course, we've got payload specialist Lai Ka-ying, the name on everyone's lips tonight. She's born in 1989. She's from Hong Kong. And she's making history as the first taikonaut from Hong Kong or Macau to ever fly to space. A scientist by training, she will oversee the mission's extraordinary science agenda, from those groundbreaking embryo development experiments to rare earth magnet manufacturing in microgravity. Her presence transforms this form from a national mission into one that truly represents all of China. There you can see the crew waving to the crowds who are cheering for them. Crowds cheering them, wishing them good luck and a smooth flight. This is a pretty short and solemn ceremony, but one that will be remembered. Big smiles today, calm, composed, and confident as they get into that van. And this minivan is going to transfer the crew to the launch pad. It will take about 15 minutes for the van to get to the pad, where the Long March 2F stands ready. This is Wentiangge, an oasis in the Gobi Desert. It's already 8:21, so we're less than 3 hours till blast off. And you can see people are putting all the efforts there to make the astronauts stay as comfortable and as refreshing as they can. This is a beautiful bird's eye view of the Wentian Hall. Really an incredible place. A stunning bird's eye view, an oasis in the heart of the Gobi Desert. And it's not dark, so you can really catch all the details. Lush greenery, carefully cultivated gardens. And they've got a big screen there showing you all the past manned missions that China has completed so far. The weather is also cooperating beautifully. Clear skies, calm winds, ideal conditions for the launch. Looks like Mother Nature is playing her part tonight. And we're seeing the motorcades driving on the road, transferring the taikonauts. They're taking it slow, keeping it under 50 kilometers per hour, giving everyone along the route a proper chance to see them off. And you can see the crowds are out there in force, chanting, "Salute to you. We see you as great role models, wishing you a successful mission, waiting for your victorious return." The classic send-off that echoes every Chinese space launch. Oh, they are driving down the East Space Road. This is the Space Memorial Tower they have just passed. This is a landmark structure at the base. The base Memorial Tower is more than 30 meters tall. The tower is pointing to the sky, symbolizing Chinese people's dream of exploring space. And the streets, once again, are lined with well-wishers. You can spot students in their uniforms. We've just seen a Chinese percussion band as well, bringing some festive energy to the night. And word is, thousands have turned out, base staff and their families, teachers, students from the Space City, and representatives from organizations across the region. It's only about 7 or 8 kilometers from the Wentian Hall to the launch tower. It's not that far, but this measured pace they're going, so the journey is going to take 15 minutes or so. Professor Yang, talk to us about the launch window tonight. Where are we going at night?
The basic requirement for spacecraft to chasing and docking with another spacecraft is that they must be in the same orbital plane. So we don't have other choices. Only that the Tiangong space station is now in a certain orbit circle around the Earth, and we can only launch the other spacecraft when the our launch site rotate along with the Earth, passing through the orbital plane of our Tiangong space station. So only at this moment we can conduct conduct this launch. And you know that the orbital plane is in different position in different period. So you may notice some of our live coverage in the morning and some at night. So this is called the zero launch window, which means that the accuracy of the lift-off moment is better than 1 second. So this is a very great challenge for us. We just mastered this technology in 2011. So we've already mastered this technology very well. And today, the zero launch window has extended to a narrow launch window, which means that not necessary to be accurate to better than 1 second, because we have a greater capability of the launch vehicle, so we can utilize the capability of the launch vehicle and extend the time window to about several seconds, even 1 minute. So this will be a very important improvement in our launch technology.
And you can see the Shenzhou Friendship Bridge, also known as the Rainbow Bridge by the locals. It is in the shape of a spaceship, symbolizing the brave spirit of the Shenzhou manned missions. And talk to us about what's considered as an ideal weather for a space launch. Are we in good shape tonight?
Yes, according to the introduction of the ground staff in the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, I also watched the introduction through CMG, that the weather today will be fine. Although you know that it is in May, and sometimes there are very strong wind, and it even have sunstorms occasionally. But today will be a great day, and the weather will be fine for the launch. Moreover, you see that we have a very great team in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. They can conduct very accurate weather forecasting. So this is extremely important, because you know that today the launch vehicle of China become more and more robust and can conduct launch at maybe in many difficult circumstances. But for manned mission, you know that the safety of our astronauts always the first consideration. So usually we choose a good weather for this kind of activities.
And we've just had an amazing view of the Dongfeng Aerospace City. Now the city is massive. It is an oasis in the Gobi Desert thanks to decades of afforestation efforts. The Dongfeng Aerospace City is not as mysterious as people might think. I've covered previous Shenzhou missions there before, and honestly, it's got the feel of any well-planned town, just with a lot more rocket launches. So there are schools for kids, hotels, all kinds of restaurants and shops, even karaoke spots, you know, for scientists and our heroes to have a bit of fun off work. But the names of the streets are quite fun, like Space Road, Universe Road. So you get the idea.
Yep.
So who's riding in the van with the crew now? Medical staff? Are they monitoring the astronauts' condition?
Well, you know that the launch itself is not only the business of the astronauts, but also the coordination between different systems, including what we mentioned, the astronaut system, and also the spaceship system, the launch vehicle system, and the TT&C system. So, you know, that's there are medics on the ground vehicle you've seen together accompanying the astronauts, and as you mentioned, monitoring everything. But also, you know that their colleagues are preparing important preparations in the launch pad inside the Shenzhou spaceship. You know that today the Shenzhou spaceship is more powerful than before. And in the orbital module, there are many payloads and cargoes preparing to be uploaded to our Tiangong station and conducting very important experiments. Because today it's different comparing with the missions decades before. And at that moment, we conduct the docking after 2 days after launch. But today we only need maybe 3 to 5 hours. So it's much faster than before. And it's not necessary to use the orbital module as the living quarter for the astronauts. So we can have more cargoes and payload inside.
And normally, what would be the schedule on a launch day for them? I mean, they will be needing to pull an all-nighter for this mission. I hope they got some sleep earlier in the day.
They keep their status in a good status is extremely important. So they must have a good rest just before the mission. And also, you know that their training is very intensive. And also, they have a backup crew. And they are also now in the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. So this kind of arrangement to ensure we have sufficient redundancy to ensure the safety and also the success of the whole mission. And also, you know that because today both the Tianzhou spacecraft and our Shenzhou spacecraft have bigger or stronger capability to even keep something which needs a refrigerator to be brought to the station. So we can have more samples, especially the biological samples, uploaded to our Tianzhou space station and conduct more complicated experiments.
And we're watching the motorcade approaching the launch complex there.
It's not very far from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center to the launch pad. So they only need several minutes to transfer from the center to the launch complex. And you may notice that now in Beijing it's already in the evening, but because you know that the longitude of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is different from Beijing, about more than 1,000 kilometers away to the west. So the local time is different from Beijing, and it's still very bright.
In the far back, you can see that blue structure. That is the launch tower. The tower hasn't opened yet. You can't just see the rocket yet. It's still tucked inside that blue steel structure waiting. And that launch tower is made of steel, built to handle the extreme forces of a rocket liftoff. It's said to be extremely stable.
And today, the environment
near
the station is more beautiful than before.
Yeah. And not far from the launch tower, that white complex
is the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building. It is very interesting. At this right moment, the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft and the Long March 2F Y-24 is standing in the VAB.
All right, we're hearing words. Our reporter Sun Ye is ready for us with the latest there in the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. She is for us at just over 1 kilometer away from the launch pad. Fantastic to have you still with us, Sun Ye. Now the taikonauts will soon arrive at the launch pad. What do you have for us from the site?
Hey there, Zhiyuan. I think we are watching the same things here. Now we're again still here 1.5 kilometers away from the launch tower. And I think you have seen from that scene of ceremony, so many people from across the country have come here, including many from Hong Kong. They're not only here to see the launch, but also to see the crew. And I don't think we can stress how special the crew is at this moment. There is Zhu Yangzhu, the commander, who is acting as commander for the first time. There is Zhang, who is flying space as a pilot for the first time. And of course, there is Jiaying, the first taikonaut from Hong Kong. Now, over the past few days here at the Jiuquan Satellite Center, the reporters have been trying to find out what these people are like and how does this team work. And now I have a detail that really stood out to me, and I think it could be quite telling. I hope you have time and we can share it with you. Now, apparently, someone has asked the 3 taikonauts to each pick an animal or a plant or any living species to represent themselves, to represent each for themselves. And so there's definitely a sea of choices. And as it turns out, both Li Ka-ying and Zhang had both picked bees, and the commander Zhu Yangzhu had picked butterflies. So there's definitely chemistry and serendipity there. Back to the launch center here, a few moments ago, we have talked with a designer from the spaceship system. 2 of the Shenzhou-23 crew are taking the Shenzhou spaceship for real this time. And the spaceship designer had said when they are riding that spaceship, they will feel 3 things. They will feel safe, they will feel fast, and they will feel at ease. And again, I am reporting the latest from this area. All systems are now working according to plan. Zhiyuan.
Good to hear that, Zhang. Thank you very much. Another historic day for China's space program. And our reporter Zheng Yibing is also standing by at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Good to see you there, Yibing. What have been the reactions from the authorities so far?
Well, good to see you too. And here at the Beijing Aerospace Flight Control Center, we can hear the state status checking between the command center and also all working systems across China, including Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. We can also hear the voices from the Shenzhou-23 crew members. And right behind me, the staff here closely coordinating with all systems working for this spaceflight mission. And on Friday, all systems completed the functional test. And on Saturday, it's just yesterday, the service tower, the flight combination finished the fuel injection. Right behind me on the big screen, we can see the real-time footage of the service tower and also the inside footage, interior footage of the Shenzhou-23, the spacecraft, and everything is going on smoothly, and everybody is watching closely for the coming of the Shenzhou-23 crew members. That is the commander Zhu Yangzhu and spaceflight engineer Zhang, and also the payload specialist Lai Ka-ying from China's Hong Kong SAR. We are hoping here and for this, wishing the good success of this mission. Back to you, Zhiyuan.
Thanks so much, Yibing. Jingming live for us from Beijing there. And you're now getting a live look from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. We're just watching the motorcade pull through the south gate of the launch complex. And you've just seen the blue launch tower with their rocket still enclosed inside it. And Professor, what are the ground staff working on now? I suppose they're still working on the tower at this moment.
So before the liftoff, there will be strong from the launch complex, one batch by one batch. So for each batch, they have different tasks. At this right moment, there are staff of the launch site system, the rocket carrier rocket system, the Shenzhou spaceship system, and also the astronaut system.
You can see the ground staff, still
the medics
at the tower.
Yeah. So you may notice that at this moment we cannot see the whole rocket because it's still hugged by the rotational arms, as Sun Ye has already mentioned. So at this moment there are still multiple checkings of the whole system, including the combination of the launch vehicle and the Shenzhou spaceship, and also the cargoes they must looking after inside the orbital module, and also all kinds of configurations inside the Shenzhou spaceship. And I believe that the astronauts will reach launch complex very soon, and they will reach the 9th floor of the launch tower by the lift.
The 9th floor, that's the access level, right? From there, they will enter through the orbital module and make their way into the reentry module.
Exactly.
And there is a white tube you can see attached to the launch tower. That is the there you see our crew emerging from that van, waving to the camera confidently once again. Stepping out of the van, all smiles. Zhu Yangzhu leading the team, following by Zhang Zhiyuan and Li Jiaying. I mean, they look pretty chill to me, with confidence.
With a sense of mission, we rise to the challenge, ready to go with full of confidence. With the original aspiration of aerospace, we will never forget. Let's set sail.
Looking good. Now, as Professor Yang mentioned, the astronauts are going to take the elevator. This is an explosion-proof elevator, and we'll get to the 9th floor. And that is the crew access level. They will be doing some final preparations there. And of course, the launch tower is made of steel to withstand extreme forces of a rocket launch.
Like all space-capable nations, usually just before the launch, we have a quarantine procedure for all the crew members. There is no exception. So you may notice they are wearing masks. The ground staff are wearing masks to avoid any infection of the flu or other virus or germs to the astronauts. So this is to ensure they keep a very healthy status to the outer space. And today you may notice that they are wearing the IVA spacesuit. So they will take this suit inside their cabin, and it is also have small improvement. During the early missions, each astronaut hold a box, which including the ventilation devices inside.
Yes.
But today it is integrated to the suit itself.
But what are those little units that are carried by the ground staff? Aren't they the ventilation units?
No, the ventilation devices has already been integrated to the IVA spacesuit. So those ground staff are taking other instruments.
They've reached the 9th floor. There will be a waiting area. They will be seated.
Yes. So the ground staff will help the astronaut to take off their boots and help them to get into the spaceship. Means Li Ka-ying, or in Cantonese, Lai Ka-ying, will be the first one to entering the Shenzhou spaceship.
And the mission commander will be the last one to...
Exactly, because he will stay in the middle.
And talk to us about that escape tube. In the event of an emergency.
Exactly. Either for the astronaut or the ground staff, if anything wrong, because there are many dangerous things inside the launch vehicle and the Shenzhou space, including the propulsion system. We have so many propellants inside. So if anything happened, for instance, some explosion, we can use this tube to conduct a fast escape from the launch complex. And they will go down into the underground. There is a chamber, go deep into the ground to protect the ground staff or the astronauts.
And of course, there will not be a free fall. There's resistance material lining that tube.
Exactly.
I think soon we'll be getting a shot at the entrance of the spacecraft.
And at this moment, so the most intensive task belongs to the astronaut system, because as you mentioned, they are here.
There you see the entrance of the spacecraft.
So you can see on the right of the screen is a hatch on the side of the payload fairing, which connected to the hatch of the orbital module on its side.
And this is the Long March 2F rocket, right? It is the only one of the Long March series that is capable of manned space flight.
Exactly. Professionally, we call this a human-rated launch vehicle. So the Long March 2F is currently the only human-rated launch vehicle for China Aerospace. But in the future, maybe in 1 or 2 years, we will have another one, the Long March 10 series, which is connected not only to the low Earth orbit, but to the human missions to the moon.
And this rocket has so far never failed a crewed mission before.
Exactly, 100% success.
Yeah, the escape tower has never been deployed, which is also a good tracking record. Now, over the years, I understand there were a number of upgrades made to the Long March 2F rockets to improve its reliability and safety of a launch, right?
Yes. So although the major configuration or the major technical specification of the Long March 2F carrier rocket is the same as the original versions, but for every mission, we have some small improvement, including the software and the hardware. Not only the improvement on the launch vehicle itself, but also have some optimization of the checking and the verification procedure. Today, that the basic requirement is to be comprehensive and complete to ensure every subsystem of the launch vehicle goes okay. So usually the checking procedure need a very long period, but today it is continuously optimized, so it becomes shorter and shorter. And even it's much shorter than before, but still we can ensure the safety of our astronauts.
And we've just seen a weather report showed up on that screen saying ground temperature there at the launch pad is at 24.6 degrees Celsius. Wind speed is at about 6 meters per second. And we're at less than 2.5 hours till blast off. And there you see ground staff there helping them remove their protective boots.
Usually, this is a task of the astronaut system. So the astronaut system taking care of everything related to the astronaut, including the design and the manufacturing of the, what I mentioned, the IVA spacesuit and the EVA spacesuit.
So this suit is only for takeoff and landing, right? They will
and
not
also
be
other
wearing
critical
this.
steps inside their cabin. For instance, during the docking. You know that the docking is also a very dangerous phase. So usually they will also wear this suit to ensure that if anything, for instance, a potential collision happened and there is a leak of the cabin, they can still keep their safety.
And usually what kind of last-minute pre-launch checks will be going on at this stage?
As you already seen, the astronaut system, the ground staff of the astronaut system is helping the astronauts to check the status of their IVA spacesuit. So this is very critical to ensure their safety during the liftoff. As you mentioned, it's right that the most dangerous phase is the launch phase and also the re-entry phase. So besides the airtight sealing of the hatch of their re-entry capsule, so the IVA spacesuit give another protection and redundancy to ensure the safety of our astronauts. So the astronaut system is in charge of keeping the good status and normal operation of the IVA spacesuit. Oh, you can see multiple cameras of the launch complex. So on the upright, yes, this is a camera inside the orbital module. You can still there is a ground staff inside. All kinds of cargoes you can see.
And that is the hatch connecting the re-entry module and the orbital module.
Yes, at the bottom is a hatch connected to the re-entry capsule. So today, the Shenzhou spaceship has an extended role to bring more cargoes to our Tiangong space station because the orbital module can now have a greater inner volume.
Oh, that's a major technological breakthrough when it comes
exactly.
to
Because
space technology.
we have already mastered the fast rendezvous and docking technology. So they will not necessary for the astronaut to stay in the spaceship so narrow place for 2 days. So the orbital module can be utilized to have more cargoes.
And they will conduct a fast, quick rendezvous this time as well.
Usually maybe 3.5 hours or less than 6 hours. We just heard the ground staff is still conducting some rehearsal.
That's a system rehearsal now. And as we stand by for that, let's also check in with this. Among the Shenzhou-23 crew, 1 taikonaut will remain in orbit for 1 year. And the return is expected to take place in 2027 through the Shenzhou-24 spaceship. So Ye tells us what this entails.
One of these 3 taikonauts will be staying on the China space station for a whole year, the longest single-term stay there to date. The China Manned Space Agency didn't say on Saturday which one. Rather, it will be decided as the situation calls for. And all 3 said on the eve of their departure that they are ready.
In terms of mindset, physical condition, psychological readiness, and skills, the 3 taikonauts are thoroughly prepared. A 1-year flight mission places higher demands on the taikonauts' physical and mental well-being. We stepped up training to build physical fitness and reserves of various physiological functions, as well as psychological resilience and compatibility among crew members.
Experts say the 1-year stay isn't simply stacking 2 6-month regular terms together. It's also what they call an excellent opportunity for frontier studies, including on how long-term microgravity could affect human physiology and their behavioral performance. So when the crew start their journey to Tiangong on Sunday, they are all stepping into new frontier. Sun Ye, CGTN, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
And you are now watching our special coverage of the Shenzhou-23 mission. Tonight, China turns another page in its extraordinary space odyssey. 3 taikonauts on board the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft will be ferried to the Tiangong space station. So another milestone event. And we are standing by for the 3 taikonauts to step into the spacecraft. That's going to happen momentarily.
at this right moment, from the video you've seen of the launch complex, you may notice that not only the 4 rotational platforms still holding the launch vehicle in forming a closed envelope, and also, there are many rotational arms connecting to the launch vehicle. So this is a video on the 9th floor of the launch complex. So, Miss Li Jiaying is now preparing to enter the cabin.
I'm pointing to the national flag.
So many gestures.
Looking good. Great energy we're seeing there. A first-time flyer.
Yeah, exactly.
And trained for less than 2
our
years.
First native of Hong Kong.
She made history.
Yeah. So the ground staff helped her to go first into the orbital module.
She is the payload specialist, right? Tell
Exactly.
us what's her job there.
Her job is conducting all kinds of experiments on board Tiangong Space Station. So the ground staff help her to go more smoothly from the orbital module down to the re-entry capsule. Very careful. Especially the helmet should be very carefully protected, because the face mask is fragile, so to ensure their safety, they must be well protected.
This is an exclusive look inside the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft as the crew get into their seats.
Yeah. So this is a video from the camera inside the re-entry capsule, and Ms. Li Jiaying will sit in the seat the closest to Earth. Just on the left of the seat of the commander.
And they've put on this suit, I guess, about 3 hours ahead of the launch. They must have had dinner hours before, 5 or 6 hours before the launch.
Yeah. In some museum of Beijing, you may see the original one of the re-entry capsules of the premier missions. The diameter of the capsule is only 2.3 meters. So inside is really narrow. You can imagine it.
So it's a pretty compact
Exactly.
space there.
So the next will be our pilot, Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan.
Also another first-time flyer from our 3rd batch of astronauts.
Yeah. As you mentioned, he's previously a pilot of a jet fighter.
So we are seeing younger astronauts selected from the 3rd and 4th
Ms. Li
batch.
Jiaying was born in 1982, and our commander Zhu Yangzhu and Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan were born in maybe 1986. So all these were born in 1980s. It's now T-minus 3 hours and counting. Reported from the ground staff. So Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan, you already call him the 02, and he will sit on the seat on the right of our commander.
So the crew represents all 3 current astronaut types we have, right? Spaceflight engineer, spacecraft pilot, and a payload specialist. Is this the template for future Chinese space station crews?
Not necessarily. It is based on the requirement of each specific mission. For instance, many of our missions, we only have pilots, 3 pilots, but sometimes we have 2 flight engineers. And you know that Mr. Gui Haichao and also Ms. Li Jiaying are, as I mentioned, the payload specialist. So on the bottom right of the screen, you can see the video of Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan. He will sit on the seat to the right of our commander.
Yeah, you can see it's not really that easy to walk in that spacesuit, so ground crew are guiding them all the way through.
You know, that's for each seat, there is a basin. It's specially designed according to the shape of certain person. So each one is different.
And you see that yellow bag there.
Yes, that's the objects preparing for instance, sometimes emergency landing during the liftoff or during the landing. So they have the supplies to help them to survive for at least 2 days in the wild field.
Finally, we've got Zhu Yangzhu The commander.
Always the commander is the last one to enter the spacecraft.
And usually the commander will linger in the orbital module a bit longer, running through final status checks before he descends into the re-entry module himself.
Yes. And you may notice that the ground staff help him to protect the helmet to avoid any collision with the hatch.
Right. And Zhu Yangzhu actually just flew Shenzhou-23 just 3 years ago. I mean, how does a relatively quick return to flight benefit him as a commander, and what's different this time?
Well, the duty is quite different because this time he is the commander. He must in charge of everything and have the consideration and more constraints compared with other roles. So this time, I believe that it's a great honor for Mr. Zhu Yangzhu. Also, he's a professor in a university before to be the first commander from the flight engineers. Also, as you mentioned, this also made history.
There you have it. He is doing final
status
checks.
So you may notice he's holding the sheet, and it has confirmation of everything to ensure that there is nothing wrong.
They must have trained for this for thousands of times, but this time they're not doing it in a simulator.
Exactly. Just last week, they conducted the last wet dress rehearsal of the whole system, including our 3 astronauts.
And we've mentioned we've got veteran flyer like Zhu Yangzhu, and we've got first-time flyers like the other 2 taikonauts. How does that mix of experience levels work on a long-duration mission?
Usually, their previous flight mission can help them to be faster adapted to the outer space environment, especially the microgravity environment. So today, for each of mission, we can ensure to have at least 1 veteran. This is because we already have plenty of chances of flight missions to can bring more newcomers to veterans today. And Mr. Yang Liwei has mentioned that for our lunar missions, each one will be chosen from the veterans.
And one of the taikonauts will be staying up there for a year.
Yes.
What kind of trainings will he or she be going through to prepare that?
Well, you know that there are 2 major considerations. One is from their body, the other is from the view of psychology. You see, yes.
All right, sorry to interrupt. We're going to run this. The Shenzhou-23 crewed spacecraft will lift off at 11:08 p.m. Beijing time, and that's 15:08 GMT from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China. And we'll be back in an hour and a half to bring you more live coverage. And we want to leave you now for some highlights from the send-off ceremony for the 3 taikonauts. Stay tuned.
Coming to you from Beijing, this is China 24. A look at China and its impact around the world. I'm Xiacheng. Serbian President Alexander Vučić arrives in Beijing for his first state visit to China. Rescue efforts continue following a deadly coal mine gas explosion in North China's Shanxi province. Heavy rain sweeps across large parts of China, triggering devastating floods and growing concerns over other geological disasters. And China's latest manned space mission, Shenzhou-23, is getting ready to launch. First up, Serbian President Alexander Vučić has arrived in Beijing for a state visit to China. Our reporter Feng Yilei has the latest.
I'm here at Beijing International Airport, where Serbian President Alexander Vučić has just arrived for a state visit to China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The visit will run from May 24th to May 28th, and this marks Vučić's first state visit to China as Serbia's president. And Chinese officials have highlighted the importance they attach to the trip. President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang are both expected to hold separate meetings with the Serbian leader, exchanging views on bilateral ties and international issues of common concern. Relations between Beijing and Belgrade have reached new heights in recent years under the strategic guidance of the two countries' leaders, with growing political trust, expanding cooperation, and closer people-to-people exchanges. Serbia holds a unique place in China's diplomatic relations with Europe, becoming the first European country to join China in building a community with a shared future in a new era. The numbers highlight just how far the partnership has developed. The Hungary-Serbia high-speed railway now links Belgrade to the Hungarian border in about 70 minutes. Chinese investment has expanded across Serbia, from green hydrogen projects to new electric vehicle ventures, reshaping the country's industrial sector. Chinese direct investment in Serbia has also increased more than 60-fold since 2013. China says it hopes the visit will further strengthen the two countries' ironclad friendship, deepen mutually beneficial cooperation, and advance the building of a China-Serbia community with a shared future in the new era, bringing tangible benefits to both peoples. President Vučić has described the trip as the most important visit of his political career. During the trip, both sides are expected to map out the next stage of China-Serbia cooperation, with discussions likely to cover Belt and Road projects, high-tech manufacturing, and energy security. Analysts say Vučić's visit, following a series of visits by other international leaders, reflects a broader global trend. As supply chain shifts and geopolitical tensions reshape the international landscape, many middle power countries are increasingly turning to Beijing to search of economic stability, investment opportunities, and reliable market access, rather than being forced to align with one side in a geopolitical rivalry. So the message from Beijing appears clear. In a more uncertain world, partnerships built on mutual respect and shared benefit are becoming increasingly important. Feng Yilei, CGTN, Beijing.
Serbian President Alexander Vučić says his state visit to China this week is the most important one in his political career. He made the remark ahead of his trip in a meeting with Chinese Ambassador Li Ming. Vučić said he will hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. He sees this state visit as an opportunity to consolidate the two nations' ironclad friendship, expand cooperation, and advance the building of a China-Serbia community with a shared future in the new era. He added that China is a benchmark for steady global economic growth and a model for upholding international principles and safeguarding world peace, stability, and cooperation. Earlier, we spoke to our correspondent Alyosha Milenkovic in South China's Guangzhou, the capital city of South China's Guangdong province. Guangdong has witnessed growing collaboration between China and Serbia. Several Guangdong-based companies have invested in Serbia. Direct flights from Guangdong also link the two countries. Alyosha told us about some of the expectations for President Vučić's visit to Beijing and the significance of bilateral business engagements.
He expects that during his 5 days visit to China, they will sign over 30 agreements between Chinese companies and Serbian companies, and not just between companies, but also high-end political agreements as well. And there is a big reason for Serbia to invest so heavily in connections with China, because China is the single largest investor in the Serbian economy. In the past 14 years, China invested over $9 billion in Serbian economy. From the standpoint of an average, let's say, average person from the outside world, they will say, oh, it's not a lot. But Serbia is a country of 6.5 million people. Just in comparison, it is 1/4 of Shanghai. That's the size of population. So that kind of investment for a country as Serbia is a huge amount of money. And it is not just that. Chinese companies employ over 40,000 local workers in Serbia. There is 35 Chinese companies at this moment operating in Serbia. And of course, there is people-to-people exchange. Over 180,000 Chinese tourists are coming to Serbia every year. And for Serbia, China is an extremely important partner. And of course, for the Chinese companies which are trying to find a foothold in the Europe. And that's why Serbia sees this visit as a very important, and the expectations from this visit from the Serbian president and Serbian delegation to China are, just simply said, huge.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif arrived in Beijing on Sunday to continue a 4-day official visit to China, which began in the eastern city of Hangzhou. The trip comes less than a month after Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari visited China. Sun Tianyuan reports from Beijing Capital International Airport.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's arrival in Beijing marks the second leg of his official visit to China. During the stay, he is expected to meet separately with President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang to exchange views on bilateral ties and other issues of shared interest. Earlier on Saturday, Prime Minister Shehbaz attended a business meeting in Hangzhou, focusing on information technology and also battery energy storage. He also visited the headquarters of Chinese tech giant Alibaba. China's foreign ministry has described the Pakistani leader's visit as an important high-level exchange, as the two countries mark 75 years of formal diplomatic relations this year. The ministry said China-Pakistan relations have remained strong despite changes in international landscape over the decades. And it added that the two sides have maintained close, high-level engagement, expanded practical cooperation, and achieved great results through collaboration on the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. According to the ministry, the two countries have also maintained close communication and coordination on major international and regional issues, helping safeguard common interests and promote peace, stability, and development in the region. China says it hopes Prime Minister Shehbaz's visit will provide an opportunity for both sides to carry forward their traditional friendship, deepen cooperation across the board, and open a new chapter in building an even closer China-Pakistan community with a shared future in a new era. Sun Tianyuan, CGTN, Beijing.
The city of Hangzhou has welcomed Pakistan's Prime Minister on Saturday at the start of his 4-day official visit. As Biran reports, Shehbaz Sharif attended a series of events promoting business and technological cooperation between the two countries.
Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif began his visit in Hangzhou, eastern China's technology hub, on Saturday. On Sunday, he attended a high-profile business-to-business investment conference, which brought together hundreds of senior officials and business leaders from both countries.
Our friendship goes back to the days of Silk Road, when goods were transported through mules and camels and donkeys. And today, here we are. Everything is now being operated through digitization. And China excels in this field more than any other country in the world. And Pakistan is a great partner.
Centered on AI technology, the digital economy, and e-commerce, the event provided a platform for entrepreneurs to strengthen cooperation and explore new investment opportunities.
We have done in Beijing a big conference where MOUs of more than $8 billion were signed. This time we have selected the 4 major sectors, including agriculture, IT, battery energy storage system, and the computer, mobile manufacturing, laptop, etc.
Beijing has been a major investor in Pakistan through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The MOU signed by Chinese and Pakistani enterprises and the investment conference reinforced the upgraded China-Pakistan Economic Corridor 2.0 and further strengthened the all-weather strategic partnership between the two countries.
By doing partnership, the business people can not only see opportunities in China and in Pakistan, but they can see opportunities in the other regions also. So if the Chinese partners and the Pakistani partners join hand together with technology, with know-how, with skill, I think so they can go forward a lot.
China and Pakistan have pledged to further expand cooperation in key sectors such as energy, infrastructure, telecommunications, IT, and wholesale and retail industries.
From what we've seen in practice, Pakistan is really going all in on AI and the IT industry, and the government is placing a very strong emphasis on these sectors. So for Chinese companies, beyond the traditional areas like energy, mining, and agriculture, there are going to be huge opportunities in information technology and AI in Pakistan in the years ahead.
Economic ties between China and Pakistan are reaching a new high as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor moves to its 2.0 phase. Now the focus is on turning the infrastructure development into a real engine for the industrial upgrading. Both China and Pakistan believe their, quote, ironclad friendship can play a bigger role in the future industrial upgrading, security governance, and regional coordination. Bian, CGTN, Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province.
Rescue efforts are still underway to reach the 2 missing miners in a deadly coal mine gas explosion in North China's Shanxi province. 82 people have been confirmed dead, while 128 people are injured. Hundreds of rescue workers are calming the complex system underground. At the same time, resettlement arrangements for the families of deceased miners have started. Initial findings suggest that the company involved in the explosion in Qingyuan County on Friday night had serious violations. Heavy rain has swept across large parts of China, triggering devastating floods and growing concerns over other geological disasters. Forecasters warn more extreme weather is still on the way. Liu Xiaoming reports.
In southeastern China's Fujian province, 17 hikers were trapped after sudden downpours triggered flash floods in a mountain park. Firefighters used ropes to guide the tourists across fast-moving water, or were rescued safely after nearly 90 minutes. Further inland in Jiangxi province, conditions turned even more dangerous. 2 farmers became stranded as mountain torrents flooded nearby fields. During the rescue, one firefighter was knocked over by the rushing current before being pulled back by safety ropes. Both villagers were eventually brought to safety. And in southern China's Guangdong province, rescuers faced another dramatic scene. One man spent hours clinging to a tree surrounded by flood waters. 2 local residents, including a military veteran, used a bamboo raft to reach him before rescue crews brought everyone back to shore.
I held on to that tree for 2 or 3 hours. I was losing hope. When I saw people coming to rescue me, I finally felt hope again.
The rescues come as a new round of heavy rain moves across large parts of China. China's National Meteorological Center says downpours will continue through Tuesday, with the heaviest rainfall expected across parts of central and northern China. Forecasters are warning of torrential rain, thunderstorms, and strong winds in several provinces.
The subtropical high-pressure system is stronger and farther north than usual this year. That is bringing more moisture into both northern and southern parts of China.
Authorities say the prolonged rainfall is also increasing the risk of geological disasters. And in southwest China's Chongqing municipality, the situation remains especially severe. More than 10 people remain missing after torrential rain triggered flooding and landslides in Yongchuan district. Some areas recorded nearly 300 millimeters of rainfall within just a few hours overnight. Authorities have activated an emergency response while rescue and recovery work continues. China's top economic planner has also allocated emergency funding to help repair damaged roads, bridges, and public facilities. Liu Xiaoming, CGTN.
China's latest manned space mission, Shenzhou-23, is scheduled to blast off in just a couple of hours at 11:08 p.m. Beijing time. Zhu Yangzhu serves as the mission commander with Zhang, Zhiyuan, and Jiaying as the crew members. Jiaying is the first taikonaut from the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. A send-off ceremony was held for the 3 taikonauts. The crew are making final adjustments and verifications. They have rehearsed key flight steps and emergency contingency plans. This is the 7th crewed mission in the application and development stage of China's Tiangong space station. It's the 40th flight mission of the country's manned space program. CMG reporter Tian Ruonan has more at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China.
我现在就是在酒泉卫星发射中心的这个发射区。
I am at the launch area of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, about 150 meters from the launch pad. Yesterday at 5 p.m., the spacecraft rocket combination completed all propellant fueling operations. To learn more about the specific working conditions after the fueling, we have invited a rocket propulsion system expert. Hello. The launch process has now entered the final countdown. All monitoring and preparatory work is dedicated to the liftoff. Could you please tell us the current status of the rocket?
We have checked a series of data, and currently the rocket is in good condition. After the rocket system enters the launch procedure, we will carry out a series of critical operations, including a functional survey of the control system, all of which are crucial for the final launch.
Thank you for your explanation. Compared to the previous rocket model, this rocket system has undergone 16 technical improvements, making it more reliable and safe. The flight will be more stable, and its anti-electromagnetic interference capability has also been strengthened. Compared to previous models of spacecraft, the Shenzhou-23 has seen upgrades and optimizations in both its hardware and software, giving it stronger comprehensive performance. It is fully capable of undertaking long-term crewed missions and a diverse range of space scientific research tasks.
Before the crew was officially introduced to the public on Saturday, one small detail had already fueled widespread speculation there. The mission badge featuring the Bauhinia flower, a symbol of Hong Kong. Wen Hongjia explains.
航天员黎佳莹
Meet Lai Ka-ying, the first astronaut from the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
我一定会全力以赴
I will give my all to complete every task. I will shoulder the mission of an astronaut, contributing my strength to the development of our motherland and our nation. I will not fall short of Hong Kong residents' expectations, and I shall live up to the great trust placed in me by the motherland.
市民的期望
Li comes from the 4th batch of astronauts and will act as a payload specialist in the Shenzhou-23 mission. Before being selected, she worked in the Hong Kong police force. Well, this time in space, she is not the only one from Hong Kong SAR. Earlier carried by the Tianzhou-10 spaceship, the multispectral imaging carbon observatory has already arrived at the Tiangong space station.
I hope our homegrown Hong Kong taikonaut can operate this locally led scientific payload and leverage collected data to support China's dual carbon goals and tackle climate change. We also expect her to capture precise imagery of the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area via our special camera.
Hong Kong SAR Chief Executive Zhang Li also congratulated Lai Ka-ying on becoming a member of the country's 4th batch of astronauts.
I sincerely thank the country for its trust in Hong Kong SAR and for its recognition and support of the city's innovation and technology community. I wish the Shenzhou-23 mission every success as it continues to write a new chapter in China's space achievements.
Li's journey into space is also encouraging more international researchers to base their space-related research efforts in Hong Kong.
China's now doing, and I'm saying fantastic. I mean, I'm too old myself, you know, or else I'd be signing up to try to get on board. But anyway, it's fantastic, and I think that's correct. It's the right decision, the right direction of travel, having a mixed, diversity. I fundamentally believe that Hong Kong can act as a global space sustainability hub for China, but based in Hong Kong under one country, two systems, gives it some very strong and unique advantages.
As Li Jiaying prepares to embark on her journey, it marks a moment when the pole of the Orient is reaching for the stars. CGTN at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
Among the Shenzhou-23 crew, one taikonaut will remain in orbit for 1 year, the longest continuous stay aboard the Tiangong space station there. The return is expected to take place in 2027 through the Shenzhou-24 spaceship. The year-long mission is aimed at exploring the adaptability and performance limits of humans. Crew member Zhang says the mission puts greater demands on a taikonaut's physical and mental conditions.
Although half-year space missions have now become routine, the impacts of staying in orbit for 1 or even 2 more months remain largely unknown and could grow exponentially. Therefore, as an astronaut, if I were to undertake a 1-year mission, I would first engage in rigorous training to boost my physical fitness reserves. Meanwhile, I would make thorough psychological preparations and approach the mission with a steady mindset.
9 space science experiments totaling more than 50 kilograms are heading to the China space station on this mission. The experiments' resources include crop seeds, biocatalytic and solar energy materials, as well as microbial samples. Among the highlights is China's first dynamic testing of perovskite solar cells on the Tiangong space station. Researchers say the results could help advance lightweight, high-efficiency, low-cost, flexible photovoltaic technologies for satellites, deep space exploration, and even future lunar bases. They also hope to rise through 2 consecutive generations in orbit.
Through this experiment, we hope to understand what effects space microgravity will have on the rice production process, which is required for the crew in long-term deep space exploratory class manned missions, and whether the space environment will affect rice genetic stability and what the underlying mechanisms might be.
On the Tiangong space station, taikonaut Li Ka-ying will conduct experiments, including operating Hong Kong's first scientific payload to monitor greenhouse gases. The device, the multispectral imaging carbon observer known as the Tianyun camera, was sent into space earlier in May on the Tianzhou-23 cargo spacecraft. It's the world's first compact, high-resolution collaborative detector for carbon dioxide and methane point sources.
The camera is like a space eye. It can image greenhouse gas emission sources around the Earth from an altitude of about 400 kilometers. It tells the exact areas where carbon dioxide and methane are being emitted, and in what quantities. These data are critical data for the goals of carbon peak and carbon neutrality, giving China more credits and voice in global climate governance.
Media from overseas have noted how the crucial tasks of the Shenzhou-23 mission will advance China's goal to land on the moon by 2030. In an interview with AFP, Professor Richard Gregis from Australia's Macquarie University says China is gaining experience in long-duration orbital missions, and the 1-year stay of a taikonaut is a key step. Turkish media says the Tiangong space station's expansion is a strategic shift toward sustainable human spaceflight. U.S. science outlets say China's advanced rocket technology and safety standards are enhancing its global aerospace influence, making the Shenzhou-23 mission important for China's lunar and deep space exploration efforts. And that's it for today's edition of China 24. As always, we welcome your thoughts and comments. You can reach us at China24@CGTN.com. We leave you now with images from nature in southern China's Guangxi region. I'm Zhang in Beijing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
This week on the agenda, global transformation. Is a new economic order taking hold? And what does that mean for the future of a multipolar world? In his new book, The Great Global Transformation, economist Branko Milanovic argues we're now living through the rise of a new economic world order and witnessing the greatest reshuffle of global incomes since the Industrial Revolution. So what does that mean for the long-term health of the global economy? And as the old neoliberal order crumbles, what is set to take its place? I'm delighted to say that Branko Milanovic joins me now. Great to have you on the agenda. Now, we're in a moment where trade, technology and geopolitics are all being reshaped at the same time. How would you characterise the global economic system that we're actually living through right now?
Well, of course, it is one of these, 34 or 64 million questions, you know. We do live, and I think we all agree, we live into a world which is significantly different than the world was about 10 or 15 years ago. The change did not come abruptly. Actually, I think there was a different moments where we were aware that something is changing, but I think we are now it's very clear that we are in a different world. As you mentioned, there are all different elements. There is a different views of coercion in international economic relations. There is an element of wars happening in the world. There is change in domestic economic policy. There is dissatisfaction both of the elites and of the large part of the public in Western democracies. So these are all the changes. And my book, the objective, if I can say it very briefly, was essentially to review and to explain what has happened over the last 40 years. And this is essentially the rise of Asia and the rise of China, and why these developments that can, from some point of view, be seen theoretically or in an abstract sense as desirable, meaning, for example, lower differences in incomes between people around the world, led to two negative sort of outcomes. The first one is geopolitical competition between the US and China. And the second one is the fall in relative income positions of Western middle classes, which in my view fuels the political instability in Western democracies.
Is this then still globalization as we've known it, or is something else already emerging?
I think it is something else, and I try to call it, its name is a little bit long, I suppose it would take people some time to get adjusted. I call it national market liberalism. Let me explain what I mean by that. The idea is relatively simple. If you take standard liberal and then neoliberal view of the world, you can essentially divide it into two parts. One part which pertains to domestic policies in economics and social policies, and we know all they are. You know, in economics, it's obviously privatization, deregulation, lower taxes for the rich, and all the usual, number of things which have been done since basically Reagan and Thatcher and continue to be done all the way until recent, and actually continue to be doing now, even now. And in the other part, call it international part, we also knew what it was. It was lower tax rates, easier movement of capital, technology, especially financial capital, and even theoretically, an easier movement of labor. Now, when you look at that international part, we can see, well, that's gone. It has entirely changed. You know, as I was saying before, one uses coercion for economic purposes. One is using really tariff protection now, not only in the extreme way that Trump does it, but even the European Union does it. And movement of labor is practically gone. And actually, we see even really movement and sort of impediments to movement of technology. That's very obvious with the US sanctions on China. And we see also nowadays with the war, the impediments to the movement of really key raw materials. So the second part, the international part, has really now become mercantilistic. And that's the whole idea in the title. The title, what essentially means we maintain the elements of neoliberalism domestically. In some areas, like, for example, lower tax rates for the rich in the United States, we make them even more salient, but we entirely abandon the international part. So we have neoliberalism at home and mercantilism abroad.
That's interesting themes, which we will dig into in a little bit. But something you mentioned before I want to pick up on, that you mentioned in your book, that the most important fact of the last 50 years is the economic rise of Asia. Has the rest of the world really come to terms with that?
It's absolutely the most important element. There is no doubt about that. The rise of Asia is very similar to the rise of the Western countries, and especially UK, then followed by France, Belgium, and ultimately the United States and Japan, to the rest of the world. Their incomes, as we know from the Industrial Revolution from the early 19th century, went up significantly. And incomes of India and China, just to keep things simple, stayed the same, and in the case of China, that even went down. Now, when you look at that, what did it mean? It didn't just mean that the Western countries and Western people just became richer and nothing else changed. Well, really, it didn't mean that. It meant that the countries that became more developed, had better technology, had military might, were able to refashion the world in the way that they thought it was good for them. That was when we got actually increased slave holding, transport of slaves, colonization of really most of the third world. So that was really a big change, international change, which was due to the fact that a group of countries became much more powerful than the others. I mean, Adam Smith, for example, in a quotation that is seldom cited in The Wealth of Nations, says exactly that. Well, now we have, with the rise of China and India, we have Asian countries, large Asian countries, you should add also to that maybe Vietnam and Indonesia, which are not only just getting richer, they actually sort of start playing similar global game that the West played in the past. So in that sense, it is a great transformation. That doesn't mean that China is going to attack countries left and right, but it simply means that China's weight in politics, in geopolitics, in economics is now very significant, maybe the way that approximately UK or maybe even the United States at one point had the weight in the world, which we all knew and were aware. So I think in that sense, it is a great transformation. And let me just add one last point. That transformation works also at the personal level, because when China becomes richer, or when the UK became richer like 200 years ago compared to everybody else, it's not only that some abstract entity became richer, China or the UK. Who became richer were people. So the Chinese people are now becoming richer, and they're catching up with many Westerners. And there is this, what I call the reshuffle of global income positions at the personal level.
So this global transformation is taking place. We are seeing a real shift in policy. In the US, it's industrial strategy. In Europe, we're talking about strategic autonomy. And China is setting out the long-term vision, those long-term development priorities. Is all of that part of the same structural shift?
You know, that's a difficult question. What I really wanted to highlight, and let me just repeat that so that it becomes very clear, that the great global transformation takes place at two different levels. It takes place at the nation state level, where actually different countries, new countries, become now quite powerful, and that leads obviously to sort of disagreements and a conflict at that level. But it takes place also at the personal level, and it is what I was saying before, it is actually that incomes of a group of people, in this particular case of Asians, have become much higher than in the past, and they enter into the area of income distribution where essentially only rich Westerners and a few people from the rest of the world were. So it is, in that sense, big reshuffle at the very personal level that we can actually feel individual. Now, going back to your question, is China in some sense doing the same things? I do not see that China in its internal policies has been very much affected by what has happened. Obviously, there are changes in China policy, oftentimes in response to the policy changes in the US. But basically, my take, although this is not really a big part of the book, but my take is that China was quite happy with globalization as it went before, because it figured out that actually that type of globalization was to its advantage. So it was not China that decided to scuttle the neoliberal globalization. It's the US that decided that globalization didn't work the way they sort of hoped it would in 1980.
So in terms of what we're seeing, US-China economic competition, are you saying that's not what's reshaping the rules of the global economic system, rather than just sitting
No. What I want to say, let's be very clear, because maybe I misunderstood your question. What I meant is that the internal Chinese policy or politics are not affected by the sort of a change of globalization the way that the internal US policies are. So in other words, the rise of China and what we observe now has had an impact, obviously, on the relationship between US and China as entity, as nation states, but has also had an impact, and that's what the book argues, on political system and the politics within the United States. I do not see that happening in China, simply because I think for China, the continuation of previous globalization would have been quite good. You know, they were winning in the globalization, so they didn't have to have a domestic turbulence that the US experienced.
But you have written about de-risking and resilience as things replacing sort of open-ended integration. So are you talking about a managed slowdown of globalization as we know it, or something more fundamental?
Yeah. No, I'm actually talking about that. What I'm talking, but there is maybe a fundamental element, because ideologically, if we split neoliberal agenda in these two parts, as I was saying before, the domestic part, which remains more or less the same in terms of economic policy, and the international part, which becomes very mercantilistic. We have actually, if we do that, we have really accomplished a big ideological change. We do not see any longer, and I think that's the case now, when we see I mean the world, does not see any longer trade, international trade, as a sort of a game that benefits you and me. That was actually positive sum game, but we don't see it anymore. We see it really as a zero-sum game, and that was a typical feature of mercantilistic policies. Yeah, I'm actually playing the game against you, and if you gain something, that must be because I've lost something. Yeah. In some cases, we might play that game even to the negative sum game, where you actually prefer that you lose so long as your opponent loses even more than you. So it is an ideological change, and I don't think it's an insignificant change.
Okay, I want to take your ideas and your thesis, if you like, and put it into the real world we're living in now and what's going on. So, you know, this year alone, we've seen a parade of major European leaders heading to China, emphasising both cooperation and strategic concerns. So what do you think that tells us about Europe's position in this new environment?
Europe's position is very specific and very, how should I say, very difficult in some sense. You know, the parade of the leader, you can also call it the pilgrimage. You know, suddenly the US has started behaving in a way that for the European is incomprehensible. And they actually see now at China as some kind of a pillar of stability that would potentially sort of, how should I say, make the international relations more similar or more stable compared to really an extremely unstable an extremely unpredictable policy from the United States. But I do not see that as a really departure from what I was saying, because at the same time, Europe continues to actually use the means with regard to China, which are not parts of the neoliberal approach to international relations. Whereby I mean, what I have in mind is different impediments and sort of stops and rules on China's investments in Europe, on non-transfer of technology, on essentially using coercive tactics, even with regard to China. And China does the same to Europe. So again, they are more reasonable partners, but they are basically also moved to a mercantilist agenda.
Okay, and so what about conflicts? Let's zone in on some of those, starting with Ukraine, which continues to reshape energy security, defence spending and supply chains across Europe and beyond. How fundamentally do you think the conflict in Ukraine has changed the way the global economy works?
Well, I think it has changed very much. As we know, actually, originally the prices of food went up, and then the energy went up, and basically Ukraine and Russia are mutually destroying each other's infrastructure, which is actually a huge cost, and it would take, I think, decades to repair. But on top of that, it has really changed the geopolitics. I do not think that actually, quote unquote, a return of Russia to Europe is really likely to happen, not in one generation, but maybe in several generations, and possibly never, although we can never say never is a long time, you know. But there would be certainly sort of exclusion in one way on the other way of Russia from Europe, and consequently Russia, whether with Putin or without Putin, would have to move much more towards the south and east. And if you look at that in a historical perspective, if you look at that probably from the time of Peter the Great and even earlier, it is a big change, because Russia was always part of the European sort of geopolitical game and quite an active participant in it. And it is a change as well.
We'll pause there for a moment, but do stay with us, as still to come here on the agenda, the rise of the 1%, how high earners are changing the face of global politics.
We are all connected. Across borders, across continents, connected by ideas, a shared humanity. Stay connected.
Everything is a business story.
Welcome back to the agenda. And let's continue now with my conversation with the economist Branko Milanovic, author of the new book, The Great Global Transformation. We've had a real roller coaster on financial markets, significant volatility, from interest rate shifts to debt pressures, currency moves. How important is financial instability now, would you say, as a driver of global change compared to trade, compared to geopolitics?
Obviously the stability is high, but what I find kind of strange, I have to say, but it's not really the area that I'm sort of expert on. I find strange the level of optimism that is expressed by the stock market. That optimism is strange, given that we have 2 or even 3, if you include Gaza, ongoing conflicts and wars with potentially significant, not only economic costs, but even, of course, human cost and cost of destruction. And both of these conflicts, Gaza is the third one, but both of them, which means Ukraine, Russia, and the US plus Israel against Iran, are actually volatile in the sense that many things can happen the very next day. But it seems that we are really enamored by the idea of artificial intelligence and the belief that somehow people would become, the leaders would become more reasonable, they would not take the extreme steps, and the artificial intelligence would prove to such a world-changing technology that it gives optimism to people. But as you know, even in the artificial intelligence, were it to accomplish everything that it's supposed to do, would lead to other problems, including unemployment and the dissatisfaction of maybe a different type of employees compared to the past and to the China effect.
Well, the conflict in the Middle East, of course, is affecting AI investments in the region. It's also feeding through into energy prices and shipping routes. Do you think it all points to a global economy that's now permanently shaped by geopolitics today?
Absolutely, I totally agree. When you look at these 2 conflicts, which are going on, actually, in the case of Russia, it has gone on longer than the Soviet Union's war against Nazi Germany. This is an absolute, I should say, to some extent from all the sides, a total dereliction of duty, actually, in the following sense. Such an important conflict between two large countries, so one of which has actually thousands of nuclear weapons, under any normal circumstances, and I believe with much more responsible leader in the 70s or the 60s, the attempt would be immediately made to actually stop it one way or another. There is no just solution. There is just a way to stop the war. And that's exactly what happened if you look historically, what happened with the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur. You want to stop them. Similarly, the war between Iran and Israel is again a war of a nuclear power, in this case Israel, and another large nuclear power, in this case the United States, against a country that might want also to acquire nuclear weapons. So we are really talking now about three nuclear-armed countries, Israel, the US, and Russia, simultaneously being in wars. And I just cannot understand how that cannot be seen as an extremely grave situation.
We've talked about things on a national level and from a business perspective from markets, but let's pick up on something you talked about earlier, people, because you've written about this rise of new elite groups who benefit from both higher salaries and ownership of assets. Are these groups starting to look similar across different countries? And what does all of that mean for politics at home?
Yeah, they are somewhat similar. I would not exaggerate the similarity, but let me just say for the rich countries, essentially Western countries, plus of course Japan, Korea, and so forth, what we see is an increase in the number of people at the top, and more specifically top decile, which means top 10% by total income. So we find that a significant percentage of these people, 1/3 approximately in the United States, are simultaneously the richest capitalists and the richest wage earners. Now, I have to really sort of bring things back into the perspective so that you get perspective what it means. Historically, not early, but even capitalism of the 20th century was characterized by people at the top who were generally capitalists and had large property incomes, but they were not among people who were top wage earners. Oftentimes they didn't work at all. You had top wage earners, I suppose, doctors, lawyers, who had large income to put them at the top, but they didn't have large capital income. They had large labor income. Now, for the first time, we see people who probably because they were really paid very high wages during their life, and then around 40 or 50, they have enough capital to become large capitalists, or maybe they have inherited that capital to start with. We see a very special elite that is really, in some sense, how should I say, overcoming the division between capitalists and workers, because they are both richest capitalists and richest workers. So this is an entirely new elite. I gave it the Greek name of homoplutic elite, meaning that they are equally wealthy in both factors of production, in terms of capital or financial assets, and in terms of labor, because they must be very highly skilled in order to have such high salaries that we observe. Now, this is not exactly the same as the Chinese elite, because in China we also see increased homoplutia. But what was interesting in the Chinese case is that the elite nowadays draws most of its income from the private sector, and there is significant professional managerial class that works in the private companies, whereas 40 years ago, most of the income, actually almost the entire income of the elite, was driven from the state sector, state-owned enterprises, party apparatus, and government apparatus. So there was a revolution at the top in China as well.
All of what you're talking about plays into the theme, that national market liberalism, where you've got economies that remain market-based internally, but are increasingly structured by national priorities driven by this elite you're talking about. Is this already the dominant global model, or something that's yet to come?
No, I think it's already the dominant global model. And I think you actually define it perfectly. That's exactly what I meant by national market liberalism, that domestically the elites, the new elites that have been actually brought to power and, that have benefited from neoliberal globalization, remain domestically committed to the same principles which they had before. In some cases, they actually may push these principles even further, and we don't really see much of a pushback on that. However, when it comes to the international relations, they have switched, they have changed. They have seen that they need to have, in their opinion, they need to have much more forceful, muscular, national protection, whatever policy, which looks very much like mercantilist policy. So we have a wild, weird animal that we observe now, and I think we will see it actually more and more as the time passes. We have a fairly neoliberal or market-based domestic agenda, and we have mercantilism in external relations. And these two things were not considered fully compatible like only 20 or 30 years ago, because it was not considered compatible that you would have really essentially domestic market-based policies. And then when you go abroad, you say, well, forget about the market. I'm now going to use the power of my state to actually promote my own goals.
It seems like so many things are happening at the same time. We've got China's next phase of development, Europe's balancing strategy, US export controls on advanced technologies, and the growing role of BRICS and parts of the global south. It's all happening at the same time. Do you think that's part of this broader shift in how the global economy is organised, is being organised, will be organised?
I do, actually. I think it is part of that broader shift. And I have to say, going back to what we just said in the previous question, it's not only the global shift of the economy, it's a global shift of the world, by which I mean it's a political shift. It's at the same time political and economic shift. We cannot, we could never fully speak of simply economics without looking at politics. There was always the interrelationship between the two. But we now see definitely, I think, when it comes to the international agenda, we see really politics sort of going together with economics, or actually sometimes even before economics. That was this old adage, the old saying that that trade follows the flag, and that's exactly what we see now. The flag and the trade go together, and oftentimes the flag goes there first and the trade comes next.
Branko, looking at all of this together, so economic fragmentation, geopolitical risks, financial volatility and shifting development models, are we moving towards a more unstable growth model or one that settles into a new kind of order?
When I actually finished the book, and I was thinking, of course, the book is obviously for obvious reasons called like The Great Global Transformation. I was actually thinking, and it's not in the book directly, but I said, could it have been done differently? Could we have accommodated the rise of Asia and this total reshuffling of incomes in the world in a much more smooth, better way? And to be quite honest, I think we could not. And it is simply because our system was developed and designed in a way that was essentially unipolar, with the United States being at the top, not only economically, but politically, militarily, and after 1990, ideologically. And then with the emergence of new poles, and it's not only China, it's also India, it's Brazil, it's South Africa, maybe soon Nigeria, you actually lose some of that hegemony. And it is very difficult to manage the world in a most peaceful, quiet way when the interests are at stake and when the hegemon feels that others are sort of taking pieces of that power that the hegemon had. So I just think that, I don't know, I just think that it was not in the cards that we would be able to effect that transition in the most peaceful way.
Branko Milanovic, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can watch every episode of The Agenda in full on CGTN Europe's YouTube channel. And for exclusive extra content from me, my guests and the rest of the team, don't forget to check out The Agenda Show on TikTok.
Coming up on a future agenda, chasing talent, why the hunt for high-tech skills has never been tougher. But for now, from me, Juliet Mann, and from all the Agenda team here in London, goodbye.
from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories. President Trump says a deal with Iran is largely negotiated. Tehran says the two sides are close to an understanding. Our other headlines, Serbia's president arrives in Beijing for his state visit to China, both countries looking to strengthen diplomatic ties. China's latest manned space mission is on its final countdown. And hitting all the right notes, we're at England's Great Escape Festival to meet Chinese bands making their UK debut. A deal to end the war between the United States and Iran could be imminent. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says significant progress has been made. President Trump says a deal has been largely negotiated and will be announced soon. Iranian officials have also said the two sides are close to an understanding to end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but that some issues remain unresolved.
Iran and its negotiating team will in no way compromise on the country's dignity and honour. We are ready to assure the world that we are not seeking nuclear weapons. We are not seeking instability in the region.
Our correspondent Ehsan Kevani is in the Iranian city of Yazd. Ehsan, tell us more about what Iranian officials are saying.
Well, Jamie, the situation is really complicated here, and any agreement toward a memorandum of understanding depends on numerous factors, in fact. Members of Iran's negotiating team have explicitly said they do not trust the United States at all, adding that this distrust is at its worst possible level. According to a text that hasn't been finalized yet, the issue of the Strait of Hormuz and the naval blockade would be pursued within 30 days, while 60 days have been set aside for nuclear negotiations. Leaks suggest that if an initial understanding is reached, a portion of Iran's blocked assets would be released in the first step. But given Iran's past negative experiences with the other side breaking its commitments on assets release, Tehran is insisting that any MOU must include the release of at least some of those assets in a way that Iran can actually access them. Once such an MOU is signed, sources say the real dialogue on final issues would begin. It's also been arranged that Pakistan will officially announce the MOU with no need for the negotiating parties to be physically present. However, an informed source told Tasnim news agency close to the IRGC that although the Americans have consistently sabotaged the process and changed their positions, Iran has made clear that without the release of a specific portion of the blocked assets in this first step and a clear guaranteed mechanism for releasing the rest, there will be no deal at all. That message has been passed to the Pakistani mediator and some regional countries involved in the mediation. Meanwhile, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC, reports that during the past 24 hours, more than 30 commercial vessels, including oil tankers and container carriers, have passed through the Strait of Hormuz with Iran's coordination. Jamie.
Ehsan, thank you for that. Our correspondent Ehsan Kevani in the Iranian city of Yazd. Well, our correspondent Jen Copestake is following the story. What are you hearing about what this potential agreement includes, and perhaps more importantly, what it doesn't include?
Well, a lot of the information that we've been hearing is coming from the American media outlet Axios, citing officials familiar with the discussions. Now, Axios is reporting that draft terms, including a 60-day ceasefire extension, now during that extension time, the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened according to the report, and Iran would be able to freely sell oil. The report says that negotiations will also be held during this time on curbing Iran's nuclear program. But what appears just as important is what may not yet be settled. This 60-day period is being reported by Axios to be an MOU, or a Memorandum of Understanding, which can be extended by both sides by mutual consent. Now, during that time, the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened with no tolls, and Iran would agree to clear the mines that it has deployed to allow ships to pass freely. Now, also according to the report, lifting sanctions on Iran, what we just heard our correspondent in Iran discussing, would only be implemented as part of the final agreement. And U.S. forces who are already deployed in the region are going to remain there for this 60 days. Now, that draft MOU, according to the report, also states clearly that the war between Israel and Lebanon, Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, would come to an end. Now, Axios reports that President Trump has sounded out key leaders in the region. That was on a telephone call that was held on Saturday, which included the leaders from UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, and Pakistan, who are all reported to have agreed with President Trump. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is traveling in India, sounds cautiously optimistic. He was speaking at a press conference earlier today.
There is the possibility that over the next few hours, the world will get some good news, at least with regards to the Straits and with regards to a process that can ultimately leave us where the president wants us to be. And that is a world that no longer has to be in fear or worry about an Iranian nuclear weapon.
Will there be questions for President Trump when this is over whether or not it's all really been worth it?
Certainly there will be, and not just from Democrats, but Republicans as well in America are questioning Donald Trump, particularly those foreign policy hawks. They're worrying that this agreement could leave Iran with too much leverage in the region. We've heard from Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who's been a vocal supporter of military pressure on Iran. He raised concerns on social media that if a deal with Tehran leaves them with the ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz or Gulf energy infrastructure, that Iran could be perceived as the winner and come out stronger rather than weaker from this. Senator Lindsey Graham warning that such an outcome could shift the balance of power in the region and become, in his words, a nightmare for Israel. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to hold a security cabinet meeting tonight. And the latest reports from Israeli officials say that a telephone call has taken place between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, where it was agreed that Israel would retain freedom of action against threats, including in Lebanon. So that goes against some of those reports that we heard about the MOU.
Jen, thank you. Our correspondent, Jen Copestake. There's been another shooting near the White House. A gunman opened fire at security guards outside the complex. ABC news correspondent Selena Wang was live on air when the shots rang out. The suspect was killed and a bystander critically injured in an exchange of fire with Secret Service agents. The suspect's been named as Nazir Best, a 21-year-old with a history of mental health conditions. This comes a month after a man fired shots at a White House correspondents' dinner. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has arrived in Beijing to continue his official visit to China. The trip comes less than a month after Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari visited China. Our correspondent Sun Tianyuan reports.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's arrival in Beijing marks the second leg of his official visit to China. During the stay, he is expected to meet separately with President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang to exchange views on bilateral ties and other issues of shared interest. Earlier on Saturday, Prime Minister Shehbaz attended a business meeting in Hangzhou, focusing on information technology and also battery energy storage. He also visited the headquarters of Chinese tech giant Alibaba. China's foreign ministry has described the Pakistani leader's visit as an important high-level exchange as the two countries mark 75 years of formal diplomatic relations this year. The ministry said China-Pakistan relations have remained strong despite changes in international landscape over the decades. And it added that the two sides have maintained close, high-level engagement, expanded practical cooperation, and achieved great results through collaboration on the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. According to the ministry, the two countries have also maintained close communication and coordination on major international and regional issues, helping safeguard common interests and promote peace, stability, and development in the region. China says it hopes Prime Minister Shabaz's visit will provide an opportunity for both sides to carry forward their traditional friendship, deepen cooperation across the board, and open a new chapter in building an even closer China-Pakistan community with a shared future in a new era. Sun Tianyuan, CGTN, Beijing.
Leah Laudi is Pakistan's former ambassador to the United States and former permanent representative to the United Nations.
Chinese economic assistance is crucial for Pakistan's fragile economy. If it wasn't for China, Pakistan could have defaulted on its external debt 2 years ago. It was China that helped Pakistan by rolling over debt that was owed to China, and therefore that helped Pakistan's fiscal position. At the same time, CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure program that China has been funding and backing, has helped Pakistan create the kind of, or modernize rather, its infrastructure, and of course, help China also as it seeks an opening to the sea that it gets through the port of Gwadar and links their province of Xinjiang with Gwadar.
That's the economic relationship. I want to talk to you about the diplomatic relationship and how closely Islamabad and Beijing are coordinating and cooperating on issues like Afghanistan, Iran, and regional stability.
Well, there's always very close consultation between our two countries, between China and Pakistan, on regional as well as global issues. Pakistan today is a non-permanent member of the Security Council. So on the Council also, the two consult very, very closely. But I think we should also acknowledge the military dimension of the relationship, which is very, very robust. Again, if it wasn't for Chinese aircraft, Pakistan would not have been able to get the upper hand that it did in the brief conflict it had with India last year. It was Chinese aircraft that enabled Pakistan to shoot down Indian aircraft that actually became a defining moment in that brief conflict.
What would a successful visit look like? What should we be looking out for?
Well, I think, when a relationship which is already very strong and has been so for 7 decades or more, I think we have to sort of bear in mind that diplomacy is a process, not an event. So I think we should, if we look at the outcome of the visit from that point of view, this visit will further fortify a very, very strong relationship. And if there are business deals that can be signed, I think that will be a bonus. But I would focus really on the fact that the two countries will use this occasion, the anniversary of 75 years of their friendship, as another point to further strengthen the relationship.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. The Brighton Beat. We're at the Great Escape Festival next, one of the UK's leading showcases for new music, including bands from China.
Everything is a business story.
What do we mean when we talk about the difference?
Brazen axe.
The difference is in the detail, the background,
Defense ministers from
the wider angle and perspective of every story, wherever the story may be. CGTN. See the difference.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top story. President Trump says a deal with Iran is largely negotiated. Tehran says the two sides are close to an understanding. The Serbian President Alexander Vučić has arrived in Beijing for his state visit to China. He's expected to meet President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang, with both sides set to discuss advancing their diplomatic relations. Our correspondent Feng Yulei reports.
I'm here at Beijing International Airport, where Serbian President Alexander Vučić has just arrived for a state visit to China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The visit will run from May 24th to May 28th, and this marks Vučić's first state visit to China as Serbia's president. And Chinese officials have highlighted the importance they attach to the trip. President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang are both expected to hold separate meetings with the Serbian leader, exchanging views on bilateral ties and international issues of common concern. Relations between Beijing and Belgrade have reached new heights in recent years under the strategic guidance of the two countries' leaders, with growing political trust, expanding cooperation and closer people-to-people exchanges. Serbia holds a unique place in China's diplomatic relations with Europe, becoming the first European country to join China in building a community with a shared future in a new era. The numbers highlight just how far the partnership has developed. The Hungary-Serbia high-speed railway now links Belgrade to the Hungarian border in about 70 minutes. Chinese investment has expanded across Serbia, from green hydrogen projects to new electric vehicle ventures, reshaping the country's industrial sector. Chinese direct investment in Serbia has also increased more than 60-fold since 2013. During the trip, both sides are expected to map out the next stage of China-Serbia cooperation, with discussions likely to cover Belt and Road projects, high-tech manufacturing and energy security.
Rescuers are clearing debris in the tunnels at the coal mine in China's Shanxi province to resume searching for the two missing miners. China's mourning 82 people in its worst coal mining accident in a decade. 128 people were injured and were sent to hospitals. The initial investigation suggests the mining company seriously breached regulations. Its owner has been detained. Well, a robotic rescue machine has been used to try to help the mission. Our correspondent Ning Hong is at the coal mine.
I am now at the pit head of the coal mine. As you are seeing now, the search and rescue operation looking for the last two missing workers are still underway. What is happening? It is 300 meters below the ground. However, what we're seeing now is that a robot was just pulled out from the mine. You can see over here, this is a new equipment, a robot designed for mine exploration, and now search and rescue workers are now loading this robot off this car, and it's been pulled out from the mine just like half an hour ago. And this robot is carried with equipment like infrared camera as well as toxic monitor, because the environment underground is extremely hazardous for search and rescue teams, because the explosion has caused cave-in, as well as the air is toxic and some tunnels are even flooded. So for search and rescue workers, they are facing extremely dangerous environment. For some of them, they may not reach, some of the tunnels they may not reach. So this robot is for them to expand the search areas, trying to locate the last two missing workers. However, it is still so difficult, and so far we haven't got any new updates about the condition of the two missing people.
3 members of a Palestinian family, including a baby, have been killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza. An apartment in the Al-Nusrat refugee camp was hit in the early hours, leaving 10 people injured. Gaza's health ministry says at least 890 Palestinians have now been killed since the start of the ceasefire in October. Well, Israeli restrictions on agricultural supplies entering Gaza means farmland is struggling to be productive. Palestinian farmers are now using empty food cans to try to grow seedlings due to a shortage of the type of nylon usually used to protect young plants. Our correspondent Nadra Al-Tibi reports.
Inside temporary greenhouses in southern Gaza, Palestinian farmers are regrowing mint and vegetables inside empty food cans recycled from aid supplies after shortages of essential agricultural materials. many farmers lost their land and nurseries during the war, forcing them to search for simple alternatives to continue farming amid widespread destruction.
The idea came from the shortage of nylons in Gaza. We started using empty vegetable cans left behind by the charity kitchens. We use them as an alternative to nylon and plant inside them.
Israel's designation of what Palestinians call the Yellow Zone has swallowed most of Gaza's farmland, reducing usable agricultural land to only around 6%, while farmers continue to face the risk of Israeli fire during their work.
We are exposed to gunfire in this area. Whenever they shoot at us, we hide until the firing stops. We work in fear and risk our lives while farming, but we want to provide food for our children.
Gaza's Ministry of Agriculture says reusing empty food cans has become one of the few remaining ways for farmers to continue growing and security food after the war that began in 2023 devastated much of the agricultural sector.
Since October the 7th, about 86% of Gaza's agricultural land has been destroyed by the occupation. Farmers have turned to alternatives, especially for growing aromatic plants that Gaza's farmers traditionally relied on for production.
According to the United Nations, agriculture made up around 10% of Gaza's economy before the war, with more than 560,000 Palestinians relying on farming, livestock, or fishing for their livelihoods.
As well as helping to continue agriculture in Gaza, collecting and preparing the empty food cans for farmers has also created limited work opportunities for unemployed youth amid the Israeli blockade. Nadira Tibi, CGTN, Gaza.
4 people have been killed in overnight Russian strikes on Ukraine targeting the capital, Kyiv. President Zelensky says 80 people have been injured, with school and apartment blocks coming under fire. Moscow says hypersonic missiles were used in the strikes, which it says were in response to Ukraine's attacks on civilian infrastructure. President Putin has accused Ukraine of a deadly strike on a student dormitory in Luhansk on Thursday, in which 21 people are said to have been killed. At least 24 people have been killed and more than 70 others injured after a bomb blast hit a train in Pakistan. The shuttle service was reportedly carrying Pakistani security personnel and their families. The Baloch Liberation Army, a separatist militant group, has claimed responsibility for the attack. 3 people have been killed and 17 others are missing after flash flooding hit Chongqing in China. Hundreds of people have been moved to safety. China has, for the first time this year, issued red alerts for landslides and flooding. Dozens of people have died, with heavy rain battering the south of the country over the last week. Final preparations are underway in Saudi Arabia for the annual Hajj pilgrimage, taking place amid tight security. Between 2 and 3 million Muslim worshippers are expected to attend the event, which runs from Monday to Friday. The number of shaded areas around the holy mosques has been increased, with temperatures in Mecca expected to hit 116 degrees Fahrenheit. The world's leading live event for new music has been taking place in Brighton on the south coast of England, now in its 20th year. The Great Escape Festival helps up-and-coming bands, including some from China, get together, make contacts, and, of course, make music. Our correspondent Jeff Moody went along.
It's the future of music, and it starts right here. On a windswept beach in Brighton, fresh acts from across the globe, hoping to be heard, hoping to be discovered.
There are artists from over 50 countries performing in more than 40 venues dotted right across the city. It's a real chance for them to get their music out there to a wider audience. But it's a chance for festival goers to hear something completely new.
New like 8-Byte. He's just 22 and he's already making a name for himself on the Chinese music scene, now making waves in Brighton.
This is a chance for the Chinese artists to show their song, to show their style in the United Kingdom and make everyone know what is Chinese making and what is their styling.
Xiao Baojing is a music promoter. He's brought several bands from China to Brighton.
Personally, I think the true charm of music lies in experiencing it live. Nowadays, there are many streaming platforms like TikTok, but to me, they're mainly tools for promoting music. I hope more people, whether Chinese or Western, will go to live concerts and performances because the energy and emotions there are far more infectious.
Xiao Baojing's star booking, Wu Tiaoren. Ren Ke and Mao Tao have been performing together since 2008. With 11 albums under their belt, they're one of China's hottest young bands. Their appearance in Brighton is the culmination of a whirlwind visit to the UK. As well as a series of performances, they've been recording at London's famous Metropolis Studios, following in the footsteps of Amy Winehouse and the Rolling Stones, who've made this space their home.
Many great musicians have recorded here, so we really wanted to come and experience it ourselves. We feel honoured to visit and record here. It feels like Wu Tiaoren will leave our own mark here too, besides the Rolling Stones and all those great musicians.
We have learned a lot from the Western culture. I hope they can also learn something from us.
And on a windy Brighton night, the lads from High Fun are going down a storm.
I thought they were incredible. I thought their performance was so professional, so polished, so atmospheric. You don't have to understand the words. The language comes from somewhere else.
It comes from the music itself, from the energy, from the performance. And as Wu Tiaoren wrap up their set, they return to China, knowing they've made their mark on this seaside city in Britain. A city where careers are made, where dreams come true. Jeff Moody, CGTN, Brighton.
And if you want to hear more on our interview with the folk rock band Wu Tiaoren, also known as the Chinese Beatles, just follow this QR code on your screen now and that should take you there. China's latest manned space mission is now on final countdown. The Shenzhou-23 spacecraft is scheduled to launch within the next hour. This mission will carry the first astronaut from Hong Kong to the Tiangong space station. One of the 3 crew members is also expected to set a new national record by spending a full year in space. The mission aims to collect astronauts' health data to support future long-term spaceflight missions. The headlines again. President Trump says a deal with Iran is largely negotiated. Tehran says the two sides are close to an understanding. Our other headlines, Serbia's president arrives in Beijing for his state visit to China, both countries looking to strengthen their diplomatic ties. And buckle up for launch. China's latest manned space mission is now on its final countdown. And that is The World Today. Thank you for watching. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
The final countdown has begun for China's next crewed mission for the Tiangong space station. This is CGTN special coverage on the launch of the Shenzhou-23 mission. I'm Zhiyuan, coming to you live from Beijing. In just under 40 minutes, the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft will lift off from Jiuquan. On board are Commander Zhu Yangzhu, Zhang, and a history maker, Lai Ka-ying, the first taikonaut from Hong Kong's Special Administrative Region. About an hour and a half earlier, the three taikonauts were seen off in a departure ceremony. They're now ready inside the spacecraft, awaiting their journey to the stars. And for more details, we're joined in the studio by space analyst Professor Yang Guang, chair of the Space Transportation Committee of the International Astronautical Federation. Welcome to the program, as always, Professor. But first, let's check in with my colleague Zheng Yibing. He is now live from the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Fantastic to see you there, Yibing. Now tell us more about the departure ceremony and the preparations that followed it.
Well, yes, Zhiyuan, on the Sunday evening, the 17th China manned space flight headed to the launch site after the see-off ceremony held at the Chinese taikonauts residential building at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert in northwestern China. The three taikonauts were all in white spacesuit. They reported to the high-ranking official of China manned space missions and saying they are ready for this mission, and requested the permission to embark on their 6 months in orbital journey. And after receiving the permission, the three crew members saluted to the high-ranking officials and all participants for this event. And later, they got onto and aboard their vehicles and headed to the launch complex and arrived at the service tower after the 15-minute long journey. And then they got into the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft and get ready for the next mission. And right behind me on the big screen, we can see the three taikonauts. They're reading the mission menus. Just a few minutes ago, we heard a very status verification from the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, the BACC, with the three Chinese taikonauts and asking them how do they feel. And all three answering, we are feeling good. Back to you.
Yes, we were looking at what's inside that spacecraft. All the three taikonauts are strapped in their seats, and in about half an hour, Yibing, that spaceship will lift off. What are the key highlights of this mission we should know about?
Well, definitely, Zhiyuan, the crew composition is a historical breakthrough, marking the very first ever in history. Well, the first one, combines both the third and fourth cohorts of Chinese taikonauts, and also over 100 science and application projects will be conducted on board the China space station by these three Chinese taikonauts. And one mission will verify the long-duration health support for future deep space exploration, including the lunar exploration. So one crew member, so far they have not named this crew member yet. They will get onto the 1 year in orbit residential experiments, the longest single space flight by Chinese taikonauts to date. And also for the science payload specialist Lai Ka-ying, and she will carry out several science experiments jointly applied by universities from Hong Kong and Macau. So there are a lot of the interesting things and highlights for this mission. Back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for bringing us the latest, Yibing, being live for us there from Beijing. And one of the Shenzhou-23 crew is Lai Ka-ying, the first taikonaut from Hong Kong and China's fourth female taikonaut. Take a listen.
太空站距离我们很远，但是这个航天的梦想对我们
The space station is far away, but the dream of space exploration is not far. You must not limit yourself. The aerospace industry is not a single field. In fact, it is a grand undertaking composed of many different subjects. No matter what aspect your major is, you can also devote yourself to the aerospace industry and contribute to the country.
Lai Ka-ying signed up for China's fourth batch of reserve taikonauts and went to Beijing in 2023. After undergoing several rounds of selection and multifaceted evaluations, she officially joined the Taikonaut group in June 2024. And applicants for China's Taikonaut program must undergo extreme tests, including high-intensity training tasks such as weightlessness, overweight endurance, and emergency response. And the Shenzhou-23 crew are confident in their abilities to complete the mission.
我觉得飞行工程师还有一个他自带的优势。
I think aerospace engineers have an inherent advantage. He or she may have a relatively richer work experience and academic background. When an unknown problem or an emergency situation arises, he or she may be able to better analyze and solve the problem by leveraging his or her own experience and knowledge, compared with others who have equal operational capabilities. The aerospace engineer is able to make his or her own judgments and act proactively, and fully serve the role of an astronaut in space.
What I look forward to the most is the diverse and fresh elements of our crew in this mission, such as the engineer commander and a Hong Kong payload specialist. After our long period of training, we will demonstrate these elements by carrying out a successful mission.
And before the crew was officially introduced to the public on Saturday, one small detail had already fueled widespread speculation. The mission badge featuring Bauhinia flower, a symbol of Hong Kong. Our Wang Hunjia tells us why.
航天员黎佳莹
Meet Lai Ka-ying, the first astronaut from the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
我一定会全力以赴
I will give my all to complete every task. I will shoulder the mission of an astronaut, contributing my strength to the development of our motherland and our nation. I will not fall short of Hong Kong residents' expectations, and I shall live up to the great trust placed in me by the motherland.
市民的期望
Li comes from the fourth batch of astronauts and will act as a payload specialist in the Shenzhou-23 mission. Before being selected, she worked in the Hong Kong police force. Well, this time in space, she is not the only one from Hong Kong SAR. Earlier carried by the Tianzhou-10 spaceship, the multispectral imaging carbon observatory has already arrived at the Tiangong space station.
I hope our homegrown Hong Kong Taikonaut can operate this locally led scientific payload and leverage collected data to support China's dual carbon goals and tackle climate change. We also expect her to capture precise imagery of the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area via our special camera.
Hong Kong SAR Chief Executive Zhang Li also congratulated Lai Ka-ying on becoming a member of the country's fourth batch of astronauts.
I sincerely thank the country for its trust in Hong Kong SAR and for its recognition and support of the city's innovation and technology community. I wish the Shenzhou-23 mission every success as it continues to write a new chapter in China's space achievements.
Li's journey into space is also encouraging more international researchers to base their space-related research efforts in Hong Kong.
China's now doing, and I'm saying fantastic. I mean, I'm too old myself, you know, or else I'd be signing up to try to get on board. But anyway, it's fantastic, and I think that's correct. It's the right decision, the right direction of travel. Having a mixed, diversity, I fundamentally believe that Hong Kong can act as a global space sustainability hub for China, but based in Hong Kong under one country, two systems, gives it some very strong and unique advantages.
As Lai Ka-ying prepares to embark on her journey, it marks a moment when the pole of the Orient is reaching for the stars. CGTN at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
The Shenzhou-23 crewed spacecraft has undergone a series of upgrades featuring improved human spacecraft interaction and enhanced safety systems. It can now carry a larger return payload, while its windows have also been reinforced to better withstand potential impacts from space debris.
The window of the Shenzhou-20 spacecraft was struck by space debris and developed a crack. After this happened, we immediately optimized the window structure design and carried out thorough ground testing and verification. We implemented this optimized window structure on the very first spacecraft after the emergency mission. It is like adding a layer of armor, giving it stronger resistance to debris impacts. In addition, we have designed some internal facilities in the cabin to provide double redundant protection for the window, giving it a stronger capability to withstand future risks.
All right, let me now bring in my guest, Professor Yang Guan. Professor, talk to us more about the series of movements we've just seen there. What happened to the launch tower?
Well, you can see that all the rotational platforms has already been opened. We can see the whole launch vehicle. And from this video, we can see in the cabin or in the re-entry capsule, we can see the 3 astronauts. On the far side is Ms. Lai Ka-ying, 03, and in the middle is Zhu Yangzhu, the commander. And also the one closest to us is Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan, the pilot. So this is video stream from the camera mounted inside the cabin. And you know that at this moment, as we've already seen on the launch complex, all the rotational platforms has already been opened, and you can see the whole launch vehicle, the Long March 2F. The Long March 2F, usually we call this a 2.5 stage rocket, which means that it has a core stage, which has the first substage and the second substage, and it has 4 strap-on boosters, so it is called the 2.5 stage rocket. And this rocket, the diameter of the core stage is 3.35 meters, and the diameter of the 4 booster are 2.25 meters. So as we mentioned previously, this is the only human-rated launch vehicle of China Aerospace. As you can also see on the launch complex, there are multiple arms in brown color still connected to the fuselage of the launch vehicle. We have multiple cables and pipes connected to the launch vehicle. So at this moment, we can still provide the electricity to the launch vehicle and to the Shenzhou spaceship. And also on the payload fairing, there are certain windows the radio waves can penetrate. Oh, you can see the whole launch complex now. And on the top you can see the emergency escape tower, which belongs to the emergency escape system, which can ensure or increase the success rate of the launch vehicle if anything wrong happened to the launch vehicle itself. So this is the Long March 2F rocket, and inside the payload fairing is the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft. At this right moment, as I mentioned, not only the launch vehicle but also the Shenzhou spaceship is supported by the ground complex to provide the electricity, and inside the payload fairing there are air conditioning to give a very convenient temperature.
So there is the launch power completely opened, revealing the rocket, which means we're getting closer and closer to time zero. Talk to us more also about this mission. It is being called a milestone mission. Walk us through why it's being considered historic rather than just a crew rotation.
Well, you know, there are so many firsts this time. The first Hong Kong astronaut, the first commander from the 3rd batch of our team, and also the first flight engineer to act as a commander. So there are so many firsts, and also from the view of experiments, as your colleagues and you have already introduced, there are many important experiments on board this Shenzhou-23 crewed mission. You know that as we already discussed during the previous live coverage, inside the orbital module of this Shenzhou-23 spacecraft, there are also many important payloads. Together with the payload just being uploaded to our Tiangong space station by the Tianzhou-10 cargo spacecraft before, so the Shenzhou-23 crew will conduct all kinds of scientific research during the rest half of the year. And Ms. Lai Ka-ying, you know that she is a mission payload specialist, and she has a PhD degree, although it's in computer science, but she's well trained, and also she will conduct all these important scientific research on board the Tiangong space station.
And speaking of those science experiments, let's take a look at this. 9 space science experiments totaling more than 50 kilograms are heading to the China space station on this mission. And the experiment's resources include crop seeds, biocatalytic and solar energy materials, and microbial samples. Among the highlights is China's first dynamic testing of perovskite solar cells on the Tiangong space station. Researchers say the results could help advance lightweight, high-efficiency, low-cost, flexible photovoltaic technologies for satellites, deep space exploration, and future lunar bases. They also hope to grow rice through 2 consecutive generations in orbit.
Through this experiment, we hope to understand what effects space microgravity will have on the rice production process, which is required for the crew in long-term deep space exploratory class manned mission, and whether the space environment will affect rice genetic stability and what the underlying mechanisms might be.
And on the Tiangong space station, Astronaut Lai Ka-ying will conduct experiments including operating Hong Kong's first scientific payload to monitor greenhouse gases. The device, the multispectral imaging carbon observer, known as the Tianyun camera, was sent into space earlier in May on the Shenzhou-23 cargo spacecraft. It's the world's first compact, high-resolution collaborative detector for carbon dioxide and methane point sources.
The camera is like a space eye. It can image greenhouse gas emission sources around the Earth from an altitude of about 400 kilometers. It tells the exact areas where carbon dioxide and methane are being emitted, and in what quantities. These data are critical data for the goals of carbon peak and carbon neutrality, giving China more credits and voice in global climate governance.
All right, Professor, talk to us more about this Tianyun camera. What does it do?
Well, not only carbon dioxide can be well monitored, but also methane is also a greenhouse gas, can also be well monitored. You see that this is very important for us to monitoring and have the precise prediction of the climate change. You know that with China and other countries, including, for instance, Cantonese from France, we have joint missions in monitoring the climate change in some certain satellites. So this is not only the business of China, but also an international cooperation. So the climate change is a serious challenge to all countries, to all human beings. So it's very meaningful this time we have this payload from Hong Kong. And moreover, you see that we have multiple very famous universities and research institutes in Hong Kong. We can give us technical support for the not only the scientific research, but also engineering research. So this time, as you have already mentioned, Ms. Lai Ka-ying, although she has a degree on computer science, but I believe that her knowledge and her experience before will be helpful for her to conduct this scientific research, especially you know that in an emergency case or in an abnormal case, her knowledge and her skill, her experience will be helpful to handling all kinds of uncertainties.
All right, Professor, stay with me. Now, among the Shenzhou-23 crew, one taikonaut will remain in orbit for 1 year, and the return is expected to take place in 2027 through the Shenzhou-24 spaceship. So Yia tells us what this entails.
One of these 3 taikonauts will be staying on the China space station for a whole year, the longest single-term stay there to date. The China Manned Space Agency didn't say on Saturday which one. Rather, it will be decided as the situation calls for. And all 3 said on the eve of their departure that they are ready.
In terms of mindset, physical condition, psychological readiness, and skills, the 3 taikonauts are thoroughly prepared. A 1-year flight mission places higher demands on the taikonauts' physical and mental well-being. We stepped up training to build physical fitness and reserves of various physiological functions, as well as psychological resilience and compatibility among crew members.
Experts say the 1-year stay isn't simply stacking 2 6-month regular terms together. It's also what they call an excellent opportunity for frontier studies, including on how long-term microgravity could affect human physiology and their behavioral performance.
So when the crew start their journey to Tiangong on Sunday, they are all stepping into new frontier. Sun Ye, CGTN, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
So as Zhang mentioned, one crew member will take part in a 1-year orbit long-term stay experiment. Professor, what are the goals of this experiment?
Well, this experiment is really difficult, but really meaningful. You see, for human being, the final goal of human being is not stay forever on the Earth. So sooner or later, the human being will colonizing other celestial bodies. So to prepare for this, we must study the long-term impact of the outer space to human body. So we already have plenty of experience on and knowledge on the residence of half a year period, but for longer period, although you see that for the crew currently on board Tiangong space station, they've already stayed there for 7 months, but still not long enough. So it's the right moment for China to learn the knowledge of how the outer space will have the influence to human body about 1 year level. You see that the former Soviet Union conducted this research in 1980s. The cosmonauts Gitov and Marilov has conducted 1 year in outer space, and the longest record was conducted in the Mir space station. The record is more than 400 days. Many astronauts from US and many cosmonauts from Russia has conducted the 1 year stay in the Mir or the International Space Station. So for China, we should also do this kind of study, and we can recognize this as a preparation for the future our exploration team to go to Mars. And moreover, you see, this is also really useful. You know that the ordinary turnover of each team is the interval is half a year. So every time 3 people go up and 3 people go down. But you know that for the short-term visitors, we have 2 choices. One is to have a spaceship and a launch vehicle completely dedicated to this short visit. But that will exhaust a lot of money. So if you don't want to interrupt the normal handover of the different crews, another choice is to let one person from the previous crew to change to the next crew. So he or she will stay there for a year. But this will bring a chance for the short visitor. And the advantage is that it will save a lot amount of money. So I think this is very necessary for the future potential short-time visitors. From the view of scientific research and from the view of managing operation, is really useful.
And as we speak, we're just less than 20 minutes till blast off. All the 3 taikonauts are there going through some final status checks. You know, space science and application research is a key part of this mission. What kinds of scientific projects will be carried out in orbit?
Well, I think life science and also space biology will be one important part of this mission. As you've already mentioned, that's the embryo, either the embryo from zebrafish, from the mouse, or even from a human body, will be very helpful for us to understand the impact of the radiation, the dangerous radiation in outer space to the animals or to human body. Moreover, you see that we will also conduct the cultivation of rice. We've already done this. It is also a world record. The first time we grow rice from seeds to seeds, so a complete cycle. And this time we will conduct the 2 cycles. This is really meaningful. You know that in the future, our goal is to set up the permanent base on the lunar surface. Okay, T-minus 15 minutes and counting. And every system will confirm its status. Let's continue our topic. You see that in the lunar surface, if we want to save the investment, one important thing is the on-site resource utilization. But you know that to cultivating the rice, it will also be influenced by the outer space, especially by the radiation. So if we want to get the right gene, which can be adaptive to the dangerous environment, we should go that again and again. So that is the reason why we would have 2 complete period, to complete 2 cycles from seed to seed. So this will be very helpful for the scientists to understand how the radiation has the influence to the rice, to the plants, and also how the good gene can be kept.
And many spacemen might know this. There was no Shenzhou-23 crew, right? They skipped a number. Talk to us, why is that?
As your colleague has already mentioned, because of the space debris, we have the space debris hit the window the critical part of the re-entry capsule on our Shenzhou-23 spacecraft. So the Shenzhou-20 crew returned to the Earth by the with the Shenzhou-21 spacecraft. And today, our Shenzhou-21 crew on board the Tiangong Space Station will go back to the Earth several days later by the Shenzhou-22 spaceship. And the Shenzhou-22 spaceship is an emergency rescue ship, which was launched within a period of only 16 days. So this is the first emergency launch of China, also make a record. So there will no Shenzhou-22 crew. And today we have the Shenzhou-23 crew.
Now, the spaceship has reserved interfaces on the spacecraft are compatible with international cooperative payloads. As China deepens space cooperation with the international community, 2 Pakistani astronauts are now training in China in preparation for a future mission. Zhiyuan reports.
As the Shenzhou-23 crew met the press one day before their journey to the China space station, preparation is also underway for the first Pakistani astronauts' short-term stay on the station. Right now, 2 Pakistani astronauts are training in China with their Chinese peers. One of them could soon be standing here, waving to the crowd, talking about hopes and dreams about space. China and Pakistan signed an agreement for a Pakistani astronaut to fly to the China space station in 2025. And their broader partnership in space, spanning multiple areas, is set to grow further.
The SPARCO is having an overarching agreement with the China National Space Administration covering the different aspects of the space industry, the satellite development, the launch programs, and also the International Lunar Research Station cooperation as well.
The 2 countries already have a long track record of cooperation that brings joy and benefits on the ground. In 2024, my colleagues in Pakistan had captured this moment of national pride when Pakistan's first lunar CubeSat satellite went into space with China's Chang'e 6 probe. And major joint satellite projects, including COMSAT-1R, Remote Sensing Satellite 1, and the Multi-Mission Communication Satellite launch in 2024, have expanded communication, remote sensing, and digital access across Pakistan. The partnership extends beyond technology. China has trained more than 200 Pakistani space professionals and helped establish joint R&D centers.
And through the interest of China, we will be progressing really rapidly. And it is a source of inspiration, a source of motivation to younger generation that the future is bright.
From human spaceflight to satellites, education, and applications on the ground, the China-Pakistan partnership in space is reaching new heights. CGTN, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
So 2 Pakistani astronaut candidates are training alongside Chinese taikonauts, and one of them is expected to visit Tiangong later this year. What's your take on China Space Station opening to international participation?
Well, this is a great step for the China's manned space program. You know that according to the announcement of the China Manned Space Office, China Manned Space Agency before, we have 4 levels of international cooperation on China's manned space program. The first is the joint experiments. We already have the joint call for experiments by the UNOSA, or United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, and the China Manned Space Agency. So multiple experiments were selected and will be brought to China Space Station and conducted by Chinese astronauts. So this is the first level and the most easy to be conducted. And the second level will be the visit of the foreign astronaut by Shenzhou spacecraft. So you can see that today we are achieving this goal. It's one step closer. And the third step, or the third level, will be the visiting spacecraft from other countries, either a manned spaceship or a cargo spacecraft. From the view of technology, if their docking mechanism and the measured devices are compatible with China's Tiangong Space Station, it is possible. And the fourth level, or the highest level, will be a cooperation on module level, which means that the module made by another country become a permanent part of China's Tiangong space station. From the view of technology, it's also possible. So you can see now we are on the second level. So we are go deeper into the more higher level international cooperation. I should also emphasize that the international cooperation was achieved since the beginning of our China's manned space program. During the first several flights of our Shenzhou spacecraft, we don't have our Tianlian data relay satellite. So ESA, European Space Agency, provide us the telemetry support to increase the coverage of our area for connection with our Shenzhou spacecraft. And also we have the joint biological study with Germany called the SynBox on the Shenzhou-8 spaceship. Today, there are more international cooperations between China and other countries.
Yeah, so we are getting a live look at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. There you go, the launch tower there. And we are less than 10 minutes till blast off, and the last of the ground crew has pulled back to safety. As you can see, the launch tower has now fully retracted. All 4 levels swung clear. So you can see the full stack there. The Long March 2F bathed in floodlights, standing alone against the Gobi Desert. And the weather has been cooperating beautifully. And Professor, what do you think is going on for the last few minutes prior to launch?
Well, as you mentioned, the ground staff have already all withdrawn from the launch complex, and they are still, that the whole system is doing some preparations. There are multiple subsystems, some critical systems, not only on the Shenzhou spacecraft, but also on the Long March 2F rocket. So the ground staff will have the monitoring of all the subsystems and confirm the right status of each system. Just several minutes before, we just heard the voice from the commander of the launch site and confirmed the status of every subsystem. And also at this moment, still we have multiple checkings of the subsystems from the different staff. So at this moment, you can see the 3 astronauts inside the re-entry capsule. The Zhu Yangzhu commander is sit in the middle. And on the far side, we can see the Miss Li Jiaying.
And they haven't lowered their face shield just yet, but they were looking at these manuals, right? What were on that?
These are the instructions of each critical step, but notice not only the normal step, but also all kinds of abnormal conditions. So they must be aware of each step and be aware of the what they should do in an abnormal condition.
Right. And you earlier mentioned joint experiments. Do we know what kind of joint experiments will be conducted in this mission?
Well, for this mission, if you mention about the international cooperation, we still need a formal announcement from the China Manned Space Agency. But you know that because according to the information we've already got, the Pakistani astronauts in the future will stay in Tiangong Space Station for a short visit. So although you know that maybe only several days, but still from the view of scientific research, still they have plenty of chance to conduct all kinds of experiments, including the space life science, space biology, material making, space astronomy, and also engineering research. So, of course, with longer duration, we can have more chance to conduct multiple categories of scientific research. But for the short term, we also can be well designed and well prepared for all kinds of scientific research. Okay, the commander has announced that it is now T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Another historic space flight yet to take place. Long-term duration, as you mentioned, in orbit research really offers shared exploration opportunities.
Yes. And at the T-minus 5 minutes, we already have already verified the configuration of most of the systems. And several minutes later, we will have a critical step to transfer the power supply from the launch complex to the onboard batteries. Both the batteries from storage batteries from the Long March 2F carrier rocket and also the Shenzhou spaceship. So at that moment, the launch vehicle or the launch complex will depending all on its own. And also the onboard computer of the Long March 2F rocket will also take the control. And we can confirm this configuration still through the cables. You can see the arms still holding the launch vehicle in brown color. Still we have the cable, have the connections, the power supply and the signals. So we can have the configuration status of the all subsystems. And moreover, you see that on the payload fairing, we also have the certain window. The radio wave can penetrate these windows and to get the all the data from the telemetry system.
And I guess the Shenzhou-21 crew is watching this unfold from aboard the Tiangong space station.
And more interesting is that your colleague in CMG said hello to the crew on board the Tiangong space station during the previous missions, and it is very interesting.
A big shout out to the Shenzhou-21 crew. Thank you so much for your hard work, and we look forward to your return as well.
Yeah.
So it's usually very quiet at this moment at the launch control. As we approach T0, all the chatter drops off, just sparse commands, crisp acknowledges, that's the call out, T-3. The final countdown sequence going on there, all the heavy lifting on the checklists is done. And when the room goes quiet, it means everything is green, and that is a good sign. You don't want to hear too much noise around this time. So I imagine every controller is mentally walking through their final procedures one last time, locked in, dialed down, super focused, because this is a teamwork. Everybody needs to do their job perfectly right. It has to be executed flawlessly. Yeah. And that's how you get a clean launch, right?
Yes, exactly. So, you know, that several days later, we will have the return of the Shenzhou-21 crew, and the rescue team will play a leading role in this mission. But at this right moment, the rescue team is also standing by. If anything wrong happened, we conduct an emergency escape from the launch. The rescue team can also have a good take care of our astronauts.
So everyone is on standby. Quite a nerve-wracking moment, no question. And for the 3 taikonauts sealed in that capsule, for the hundreds in launch control and across the support network, for everyone watching here and around the world.
Exactly. So at this moment, you can see the launch complex from, you can see the launch vehicle, the combination of the carrier rocket and the Shenzhou spacecraft at this moment. But you know that there are many other systems, including the telemetry stations, including the rescue teams, and also all other systems are preparing for this launch.
Just as this is a moment for excitement, there is also a moment for anxiety too, right? For the astronauts who are waiting for the launch, there's really not much they can do at this point. They're being strapped in. Things are out of their hands. They are relying on their team to get them out there safely, putting their trust entirely in the team on the ground.
Yeah.
And we are getting closer and closer to T0.
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
60 seconds prior to liftoff. An incredible moment to witness. Truly, truly a magnificent view. The floodlit stack against the desert dark. A sight to behold.
Soon you will see the remaining arms will rotate. Yeah. The Shenzhou-21 crew is watching the live coverage of CMG.
There we go. The umbilical cord, the rotational arm has detached.
So at this moment, the onboard computer has already have the full control of all the critical functions.
Yeah, it is a go for launch. Some riveting feat right there. And people in the crowds, the onlookers, are all watching this with excitement.
20 seconds.
Crew of Shenzhou-23 bound for Tiangong are about to begin their journey. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
So the first critical step will be the pitch over, which means that the launch vehicle will change its direction to eastwards.
Just a spectacular scene. You're watching Shenzhou-23 spacecraft, China's divine vessel, climbing skyward from its desert spaceport. Its destination, Tiangong, the Heavenly Palace. 3 astronauts on board the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft will be ferried to the core module of China's space station. Oh, you can see the moon right there,
exactly.
Very clearly.
So this is well calculated before the launch, the right direction.
And you're hearing the launch team as we speak calling out tracking status, confirming things are going good. And that's the sound we'd like to hear.
You can see the bright flame of the 8 rocket engines, 4 on the core stage and 4 on the 4 boosters, with 1 each working properly.
Absolutely, and the rocket's trajectory is being tracked across multiple systems, multiple ground stations, optical, infrared, radar. We've got full coverage.
Exactly. So the pitch over has been well conducted, and you may notice that the launch vehicle changed its direction. And the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the emergency escape tower, about 2 minutes after the liftoff.
So pitch over new maneuver has been conducted
already.
And keep in mind the Long March 2F has 4 strap-on boosters. They run on liquid fuels, and in the next few minutes, the booster will detach.
Each booster has 1 rocket engine. So this is a video from the camera of the ground station, the optical one.
Yeah, you can see bright
so
flame.
The emergency escape tower has already been jettisoned. Confirmed. And the next will be the separation of the 4 boosters.
That's the confirmation of initial low altitude phase went well.
Shenzhou is a ground station near the launch site. So this is a video camera mounted on the fuselage of the launch vehicle.
So we're looking at the side boosters.
Yeah, you can see 2 of the 4 boosters.
And the
next
step.
step will be the separation of the 4 boosters.
There you go.
Beautiful. The 4 boosters is separated. And also the first stage is separated.
Yeah, immediately after that, the first stage separation. A very successful one.
Exactly.
So a series of fast maneuvers and status reports there.
And the next step will be the separation of the payload fairing, because it's already high enough. So this is a video from the camera mounted on the rear part of the second stage.
We're looking at the taikonauts. They're looking good to me.
Exactly. So they are very calm and I believe, very confident.
But what is it like for the astronauts now? How many G-forces are they feeling
The peak will be about 3.6.
Okay.
So this is the camera inside the payload fairing. You can see the folded,
there you go.
Separated.
Another major step during the flight. Roughly 4 minutes into the flight, we're seeing the fairing jettison. That protective nose cone split open and fall away.
Yes. And this moment, Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan and Miss Li Ka-ying can enjoy the view outside the window.
Oh, they can, right,
Yes.
that's true. Now the spacecraft is entirely exposed to space.
So the ground team reports that monitoring and the tracking is normal, either the radar or the optical ones.
This is a very critical step, actually. If the spacecraft simply cannot operate while trapped inside that metal cone, so that clean separation is exactly what we would like to see.
Well, our Shenzhou-23 crew is watching the live coverage, and absolutely, after launch, they will prepare the food and the bedroom for our new crew. So they will have breakfast together tomorrow morning.
I guess the next major movement will be the second stage engine separation.
We will take several minutes. You see, that's the second stage works much longer than the first stage. Although you know that on board the second stage, we only have a main engine with a thrust of about 80 tons and 4 vernier engine which can change its direction of thrust, so it can adjust its trajectory very precisely, but it will work much longer in the second stage. And you know that usually we will first shut down of the main engine called MECO. And after several seconds, when the vernier engine has adjusted the trajectory to the right position, only at that moment we can shut down the vernier engines.
I think we were getting a visual of the second stage engine. You know, the vehicle is covered in cameras. Engineers want eyes on every component, every connection point.
Yeah.
If anything anomalous happens, they need real-time visual reference to diagnose it instantly.
On the left of the screen, you can see the camera of the bright flame of the main engine, and on its left is one of the four vernier engines.
And the astronauts will feel peak G-forces before the second stage shutdown?
Yes, exactly.
So you might want to take a look at these taikonauts and see whether it'll show on their faces through their body gesture.
They were trained for 8G, so it's not a big case for them.
This is nothing for them. This is a piece of cake for them. But chances are you might not see anything major, because they have trained themselves well to endure high G-forces. Like you said, up to 8G.
Yeah. And the more strict requirement is that even at 8G, the pilot should have the ability to operate and conduct the right operation.
Is there anything they can do now to offset the effect of high G-forces?
Well, there are certain skills for them. For instance, how to breathe is a very special skill.
So they've been trained to endure such forces.
So at this moment, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu and Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan all have the ability to piloting the ship and can be recognized as backup of each other to ensure the success of this launch.
Once again, the Shenzhou-23 crew is watching this flight very closely. They've put up banners, welcoming banners as well.
Yeah.
The taikonauts are looking solid there. Commander Zhu Yangzhu in the center, second flight. He knows exactly what to expect. And Zhang Zhiyuan and Lai Ka-ying on either side, first-timers, but years of simulator runs and centrifuge sessions have prepared them for this exact moment. No more training wheels. This is the real deal.
So the main engine will shut down soon.
The astronauts are enduring more G-forces as the rocket is accelerating.
Okay, the main engine shut down.
Great.
So you may notice still the vernier engine has flames. So it will, because the thruster is much smaller, so it can adjust the trajectory very precisely to ensure it's accurate enough for the destination.
Yeah, we've just heard the confirmation. Main engine has cut off. I guess the taikonauts might feel a bit more at ease now as the environment is changing from high G-forces to microgravity conditions. Will things be starting to float from this on?
Because we still have the vernier engines now, still not 0G.
So later,
several seconds
things will
later.
start to be floating if you watch closely. And what's coming up next?
Next will be, after the shutdown of the vernier engines, will be the separation between the launch vehicle, the second stage, and our Shenzhou spaceship.
Spaceship separation.
Yeah. So this time the vernier engines works longer.
Yeah, we could still see some combustion flames there. I guess they're still doing some adjustment burn to fine-tune their positions. They have pulled out their manuals once again. What do you think they're looking at?
So there are the instructions of all steps, all the details, how they react. The ground staff reported that the tracking is normal by the optical and the radar devices. Changyang 3 号 is the code of our space tracking ship, the Yuanwang 3 space tracking ship. So we have this on the Pacific Ocean to have a better coverage of the tracking. Okay, the vernier engine I see also shut down.
There you go.
So we can see the camera.
This is a complete
separation.
Yeah.
So now they are in orbit, and we've already made history. Our first Hong Kong astronaut is already in outer space.
Wow, congratulations to the crew.
Congratulations to Mr. Jiaying or Lai Ka-ying.
Very successful spacecraft separation.
So the next critical step will be the unfolding of the solar panels of our Shenzhou spacecraft.
Yeah, we've just got a visual of the solar panel, and we've just seen the second stage drifting away in space. Like Professor Yang mentioned, the rocket has completed its task. It has sent the spacecraft into its planned orbit successfully. Shenzhou-23 spacecraft is now flying free safely in its planned orbit.
So on the left of the screen, you can see the 3D animation. Although it is a simulation, but it can represent the real status, including the position, the attitude, and also the status of the solar panels.
UTC-0 星力文件会向6程仪启动，长程。
长程明白。
And this 3D animation is actually based on live telemetry, isn't it?
Yes. So this is, at this moment, I believe that at least we have the connection between the Yuanwang 3 space tracking ship and our Shenzhou spaceship. And also we have the help of a Tianlian data relay satellite. So we have redundancy on the data link.
So it is being tracked by several different ground tracking satellite dishes. It's a pretty good visual representation of the spacecraft.
Yeah. You may notice that just several seconds before, because you know that Mr. Zhang Zhiyuan is first time to outer space, and he's enjoying the 0G, the floating of his pen.
He did?
Yeah.
Having a bit of fun there. So the next step we are going to see is the deployment of solar panel.
Yeah.
Right.
各号注意，我是北京亮外901S 注入数据会见流程已启动，长程。
长程明白。
Normally, launch providers and launch agencies would have a simulation like this one we're seeing that takes in all of the live data and does a visual representation of it.
Exactly. Not only the status of what we see, we can see the solar panels, but also the working of each rocket engine, and even the, okay, great. We can see the unfolding of the solar panels. This is the voice of Mr. Zhu Yangzhu.
长程报告，太阳帆板展开正常。
太阳帆板展开正常。
That's the confirmation of a successful deployment of solar panel.
So at this moment, our Shenzhou-23 spaceship already have continuous power support.
It's on its own power source.
Yeah. Now the two newcomers are enjoying the microgravity now.
报告，帆板驱动正常。
帆板驱动正常。
So it's reported that the SADA, or the mechanism driving the solar panels, working properly.
Yeah, and we have to mention this is not a pre-programmed video on the left you're seeing. It's a live visualization of the real telemetry, so it's showing you everything in real time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real-time, real data-driven 3D animation.
And next up, I guess the high-gain antenna deployment.
Yeah, that's the high-gain antenna belongs to the telemetry system, which connects the vehicle with the Tianlian data relay satellite. You know that it's a high-gain antenna, so it can support the video transmission. But at this moment, still we get this video from the space tracking ships, the Yuanwang 3 or the Changjiang 3号.
And ground team is still confirming the status of the crew and spacecraft.
神舟23号报告，飞船座舱大气环境正常，航天员感觉良好，完毕。
So the in-cabin environment is very good, and they feel perfectly.
通报座舱环境。
长程报告，座舱环境正常。
北京明白。
长江3号跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
神舟23号，我是北京，经地面确认，座舱环境正常，可以打开面窗。
They can open their face mask now.
Yeah. And you can
it's
see
more
the pen
convenient
is
for them.
floating them. Yeah. Ground team has just confirmed they can pull up their face shields.
So the most dangerous part has already been accomplished.
I think the ground team can breathe a sign of relief. But they're still calculating some data, right?
They are still calculating the accuracy of the orbital parameters to confirm it's accurate enough for the Shenzhou spacecraft to chase to chase our Tiangong space station and dock visit.
Usually, how long does it take for them to do the calculation?
Well, usually it takes several minutes. We got multiple data resources either from the inertial measure unit from the Shenzhou spacecraft or our Beidou navigation satellites have the support to the receiver on board our Shenzhou spaceship. And also we get the measurement from the space tracking ships. So we have multiple data resources and we can have an integrated analysis of how accurate it is.
So we'll be waiting for a couple more minutes for the official announcement coming from ground control.
So we will compare this orbital parameter with the current orbital parameter of our Tiangong space station and have a preparation. And so only it is accurate enough, our Shenzhou spaceship, because it only have limited propellants. So only when it is accurate enough can we confirm it has the ability or the chance to dock with the Tiangong space station. But today, the technology is already very practical, and the GNC, or the guidance, navigation, and control system of Shenzhou spaceship all takes an autonomous mode to dock with the Tiangong space station.
And what happens next? In a couple more hours, we're going to see the docking and rendezvous.
Well, the onboard computer will calculate, and the GNC system I mentioned will make the choice by itself, the autonomous mode, and finally it will become closer and closer to our Tiangong space station, and finally it will dock from the from the radio docking port on the bottom of our Tianhe 1 core module.
And this is such a big improvement, right? The time span is being shortened to 3.5 hours or so from 6 hours or more than that, which means...
Well, I can still remember during the live coverage on CCTV News in 2011, at that moment we still take 2 days from the launch to the docking. But it becomes shorter and shorter. Today we've already mastered the faster rendezvous and the docking technology very practically, either by the Tianzhou spacecraft. Tianzhou spacecraft also made a world record of 2 hours. So the 3.5 hours or 5 hours, 6 hours is very practical for all of us.
So the astronauts won't be sitting there uncomfortably for that long.
Yeah,
that's
you can see that you take a car to your office. It will be shorter. The shorter it is, the more convenient you are.
And there's an improvement on the windows as well, right? Because the previous spacecraft was hit by space debris, and they made major improvements on that.
Exactly. So at this time, the window of the re-entry capsule is enhanced. It's stronger than before. We also have some backup measures. If it was hit by a space debris, we still have the cover to protect the inside environment.
This is a live look at the control center.
北京出轨根数及分离点参数已向各方向发出。东风。
东风明白。
华山。
华山明白。
江阴。
江阴明白。
天路。
天路明白。
长江3号。
长江3号明白。
So the chief of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center maybe will announce the success of the launch.
北京东风请讲。
下面请酒泉卫星发射中心主任、发射场区指挥部李本奇指挥长宣布发射结果。
北京明白，各号注意收听。
Now we're standing by for the official word from the Shenzhou-23 launch team. We're expecting a brief announcement. Let's listen in.
各位领导、同志们，根据火箭飞行数据及北京航天飞行控制中心监视计算，长征2号 F-23火箭已将神舟23号载人飞船准确送入预定轨道，飞船工作正常。我宣布，神舟23号发射任务取得圆满成功。
There you have it. Official confirmation from the command center. The Shenzhou-23 launch is a success.
There must be the big red screen.
Yeah, the 3 taikonauts are now en route to the Tiangong space station. There you go, the red screen. The Shenzhou-23 spacecraft will rendezvous and dock with the Tiangong core module. What a couple of extraordinary minutes we've just witnessed. How do you feel after watching that?
Well, as we've already mentioned, after the shutdown of the vernier engines, it's already made history. Our first astronaut from Hong Kong, Miss Li Ka-ying, Dr. Li Ka-ying, has already come into orbit, the first astronaut. So congratulations to her. And also congratulations to Zhu Yangzhu, the first commander, act as the from the flight engineer. So I can no longer wait for their very important experiments on board Tiangong Space Station during the next half a year. So I believe that besides the scientific research, I believe according to the announcement of the China Space Agency, they also have the outreach tasks. So I believe that the success and the achievements of Ms. Li Ka-ying will be, I believe that the Hong Kong people, especially the young people, will be so proud and they will be inspired. I believe many of them will choose the scientific research, engineering, or even the aerospace technology as their career. So this is one advantage of this mission.
And looking ahead with the lunar program accelerating, Mengzhou spacecraft, Lanyue lander, Long March 10, how does Shenzhou-23 fit into that bigger picture of getting Chinese boots on the moon before 2030?
Actually speaking, the Tiangong Space Station is a very important platform for the testing the necessary technology for the future Mars mission. For instance, during the next the coming years, the Mengzhou spacecraft will be come into use. Maybe we will conduct some unmanned missions first, but you know that many of the status of the, especially the return module, have the same configuration from either the low Earth orbit mission or the for the lunar missions. So there will be a very good preparation. Also, the Long March 10 series rockets will be well prepared for the future missions to the moon. Moreover, you can see that some of the key technologies for the future manned lunar base. For instance, this time during the Shenzhou-23 mission, we will have some microbes in the vacuum condition. You know that the lunar soils is hazardous, not feasible for cultivating crops. So you see that the microbes can help us to optimize these soil or the regolith to be possible for us to grow crops, some rice on the future lunar base. So this is a very important experiment for the on-site resources utilization.
Yes, and a major upgrade is the ability to return more scientific payloads to Earth this time, right? How did the spacecraft's reconfigured internal systems technically enabled this increased cargo return capability?
Well, you know that the Shenzhou-23 spacecraft belongs to the new batch. You know that we have many Shenzhou spaceships, but this belongs to a new batch. And we have some improvement. For instance, the internal system, especially the control panels, is optimized. So the inner volume is bigger. We can have more space for the samples in experiments to go back from the space station to the Earth. So this is one improvement. Moreover, many systems were optimized. So this time we can see more chances for the astronauts to conduct scientific research.
And as we are undergoing China's 15th five-year plan and more space missions to come this year, how do you see China's efforts in space exploration? How far has it come from Yang Liwei's first visit to space in 2003?
Well, I always mention that, you know, that Mr. Yang Liwei, our space hero, achieved the millennium dream of the Chinese people to the outer space. But you know that walking on the moon or in the moon palace is another millennium dream of the Chinese people. So this will be achieved before 2030. So I think all these missions, including these Shenzhou-23 missions, are good preparation for this millennium dream of the China people. And many of my friends from the China astronaut team has expressed their wish to join these manned missions in the future. And I suggest them to eat mooncake on the moon.
You earlier mentioned the biggest highlight of this trip is Hong Kong's participation, right? And as part of Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, how will Hong Kong integrate into national aerospace innovation chains under the 15th five-year plan? And do you see it becoming an aerospace innovation hub?
I believe Ms. Li Jiaying will be not the only Hong Kong people to go to outer space. So in the future, I believe that the Hong Kong space sector, including those from the universities and research institutes, can do more things in our manned space program. You know, another thing is you may notice that Hong Kong has a well-education and English speaking. So Ms. Li Jiaying, she can speak fluent English. So I think this is also very important for the international cooperation in our manned space programs.
And the 15th five-year plan also talked about the commercial use of space industry. How can Hong Kong leverage its financial, legal, and international advantages to support the expansion of China's commercial aerospace sector?
Well, you know that Hong Kong have a very practical commercial market, and the commercial utilization is also very important for the future of China's space activities. So I think in the future, you know that commercial factors will be more important for all our space activities, including the manned space activities. Very interesting, as we've already discussed, the Mengzhou spacecraft. The Mengzhou space for the low Earth orbit, it can take up to 7 astronauts to outer space. So it's also possible that the space tourism, so we can have the tourists on board the Mengzhou spacecraft. I believe this will be a commercial space activity in the manned space programs. It's also one important, I believe, in the future milestone for our commercial activities and our manned space activities.
Yeah, who knows? Space tourism might come sooner than we thought.
Well, yes.
Let's also take a look at this. China has unveiled its strategic roadmap for development during the 15th five-year plan period. The blueprint highlights the country's commitment to modernization, quality production, green technology, and enhancing people's well-being. In today's special series, 2026 to 2030, The Journey Ahead, our correspondent Sun Ye explores China's growing commercial space sector.
More launches, and more of them driven by China's commercial space push.
It used to be it was the more established launch sites and their surrounding space cities that have streets and roads that are totally space-themed, like Wenchang's Road of Starlight, like Jiuquan's Road to Space. Here, a 20-minute drive away from Beijing CBD area is the Chinese capital's very own Rocket Street.
The street, which is really a compound devoted to commercial space development, was only completed earlier this year. Some of China's best-known commercial rocket makers who would call it home are ready to see their big plans lift off and to achieve successful returns soon. As the development of reusable rocket technology, meaning cost-effectiveness, repeatability, flexibility, and ultimately global competitiveness, is getting critical thrust right now. A number of companies have announced their plans for 2026. Landspace has scheduled a recovery test for its Zhu-23 reusable rocket in the second quarter of this year. When we visited Galactic Energy in March, it was planning to launch its first reusable liquid-fueled rocket, Pallas 1, in less than 3 months. It also plans to launch the more powerful reusable Pallas 2 by year's end. Beijing's Rocket Street itself plans to break into new stratospheres in the coming years with reusable rockets and more.
We aim to rank among the best in the world. We will promote airline-style launches of large reusable rockets, fully reusable rockets, and fully reusable heavy-lift rockets. We will accelerate the development and mass production of new internet satellites, plan the building of new space infrastructure, and develop full industrial chain capabilities to launch 1,000 satellites.
Galactic Energy is also working on the rocket's final stage, an on-orbit service platform to be capable of a number of things, including cleaning up space by extending its hands and taking space debris away. The company believes this is the opportune time for their missions as they count on their own capabilities and existing support structures.
In recent years, we have deeply felt the concerted support from policy, capital, and talent. Areas such as Beijing Economic Technological Development Area have provided targeted support for core technology breakthroughs. Patient capital at both the national and the local levels has accelerated its convergence.
they could all soon see an even bigger boost. China's 15th five-year plan, which begins in 2026, has set the goal of building the country into a space power by 2030, also identifying the aerospace industry as an emerging pillar industry. As China anticipates the space industry to become a key driver of new productive forces.
商业航天产业的发展机遇前所未有。
Development opportunities for the commercial space industry are unprecedented, and there is no time to waste. During the 15th five-year plan period, Beijing E-Town will support the commercial space industry cluster with 1,000 enterprises working together, 1,000 satellites in orbit, and over 100 billion yuan in revenue.
The drive is felt across China. Shanghai plans to expand its commercial space industry to over 100 billion yuan, or $13.8 billion by 2027. Shanxi province is targeting at least 10% annual growth each year by 2027 for its commercial space sector. Late last year, the China National Space Administration released an action plan running through 2027 that brings commercial space ventures into the national space strategy. Commercial space companies are encouraged to participate in major national space projects. This as China looks ever deeper into space, with visions for exploration from the moon and interplanetary space to the entire solar system. China's space industry opened to private investment in 2015. Now the country has more than 600 commercial companies. Last year, the annual financing reached over 18 billion yuan. In the coming years, the industry could reach escape velocity and transform in scale, innovation, and reach. From the country's southern island shores to its northwestern Gobi deserts, to Beijing and beyond, the commercial space sector is taking flight. CGTN, Beijing.
China has successfully launched its Shenzhou-23 crewed mission with 3 taikonauts on board. Before we go, let's recap some key moments from the launch. I'm Li Qiuyan in Beijing. Thank you so much for staying with us, and have a good one.
我宣布，神舟23号发射任务取得圆满成功。